We good to go? Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the May 18th, 2021 meeting of the Sandless Coastal Unified School District Board of Trustees. At this time, we'd like to ask that those in attendance, please keep your videos off and audio muted unless you're presenting information or speaking in public comment. We're offering translation services for our Spanish-speaking attendees. To access translation, please click on the globe at the bottom of your screen and then language. At this time, we'd like to ask if anyone who needs translation could please click on the participants icon at the bottom of your screen and raise your hand.
Jessica, could you please translate that?
Jessica, could you translate, please?
Absolutely. Buenas tardes a todos. Si alguien necesita traducción, por favor, oprime el globo terráqueo que está en el centro hacia abajo de su pantalla.
Okay, so the board met in closed session this evening. We had a conference with our labor negotiators, our legal counsel, and Kristen Newland, Director of Human Resources, regarding employee organizations, confidential, CSEA, MEC, SEIU, and SLCTA. Do we have a consensus on the order of business? Okay. What I want to let everybody know is that we're going to go to our student board representatives first. Then we'll go to our Los Ranchos program highlights second. Then we'll go to item 7.01, which is the first hearing regarding proposed composition of by trustee area maps. We have a hard stop with that at 6 o'clock because we're going to be doing an employees of the year presentation. If there's more discussion that needs to be held on item 7.01, we'll do that after we do the employee of the year presentation. So we want to make sure that if there are more comments than time, that everyone has an opportunity to speak and to get what needs to be understood done. So let's see, Mandy, are there any student representatives ready to speak to the board this evening?
I do not see them.
Okay, great. Well, let's move on to item number 6.02, Ranchos program highlights. Looks like Mr. Mayfield's ready to introduce this.
Yeah, hi, Mr. Unger. We have Marley Schmidt, principal of Los Ranchos Elementary, here with highlights of her school. Please, Marley.
Marley, you're muted.
Yes. Oh, I won't be sad when that phrase goes away. Thank you so much for making time for us this evening. This has been such an extraordinary year. So many things at school that used to feel really ordinary and expected now feel extraordinary and unexpected. And our writing program in kindergarten is one of those things that feels truly extraordinary and always has. We adopted it 8 years ago. And while it has become what feels expected, it still takes my breath away. To share this extraordinary work with you tonight, you're going to be hearing on a recording a presentation that Maya Bodwin and Alexandra Bailey share information. They are 2 kindergarten teachers. And then next you're going to hear from 3 of our kindergarten authors, Zoe, Hudson, and Kavya. Here we go. So I'm going to share my screen. Whoop. 1 second. Let me try that again. Let me try that other screen.
And thank you again for having us here. We first off, want to say thank you so much to our families at home. We started the year Zooming, as you know, and learning to write in kindergarten is one of the hardest subjects we teach, and we can't thank our parents enough. When we start kindergarten writing in the beginning of the year, we teach the students that they are all amazing writers and that they have stories to tell. So being able to speak a story or tell a story orally is our first step. And then we empower the students to draw and start writing their stories. Here's an example of Everly in the beginning of the year telling a story about being in her grandma's pool. And then the other student, who is Hannah, again, early September, she shared a story about a time that you can see her word me, and Kai, her brother, went to the zoo. And so that's how the beginning of our year start. Here's another example of how we really strongly teach into the letter charts so that students can start linking letter sounds to letters and then include them in their writing. We also teach them how to learn words. Here's a picture of Haley in the beginning of the year, and you can see in September, early September, she's labeling her drawing with S for swing, and slide, S for slide. And then over later in October, you can see how she's grown as a writer, and she's stretching out the words to hear multiple sounds like bed. And she even wrote a sentence, I love my stuffy. That's her dolphin there. As we progress through our narrative unit, here's a picture of Dylan's writing. And the difference here is you can see students start writing stories across multiple pages. So he wrote, can you see the garbage truck by Dylan? The garbage truck is coming. You can see a speech bubble there. You can see different punctuation. Then he wrote, the garbage truck is almost here. The garbage can is empty. Oh no, the end.
One thing we really love about our program is how the reading and the writing and the phonics all align. So these are actually some posters from our phonics and reading units, and we bring them out in writing. So as they learn about vowel power and how every word needs to have a vowel, the same, of course, applies to their writing. So we're always pulling out charts. And this is one of our favorite units is our how-to books. And we can see here one of the charts. And then this is Charlie's writing, and she shows how beautifully she's learning how to use transitional words. So you can see in there she's using the word first, and then she's using the word next. And then one of the most important parts of our program is trying to teach children how to be independent writers. So we try to empower them with all these charts so that when they ask us something, we say, did you try? Or pull out your chart. And then over here, you can see Julia using her arm, and we teach them how to use their arms to hear all the sounds and words. So she's going down her arm and stretching that word out so she can hear the beginning, the middle, and the end. And our last unit of the year before we do creative writing is our persuasive writing. And we love this one. We're teaching the children how they can change the world with their words. And so one of the beginning parts is we see what can we change in our classroom, or what do we need to teach people to remember to do. So over here, on the left, please don't run in the classroom. You could get hurt. It will hurt. And I don't like that. Thanks. But don't just take it from us. We'd love to share some actual writing with you. So we're going to have Zoe and Kavya and Hudson share some of their writing on how to make the world a better place.
We're doing opinion writing, and this is my first. We don't want littering. I'm writing this to the whole world. So this one's for the whole world. This one's for my school. And this one's going to be for the whole world. So yes, I wrote one to the president because I did not want graffiti. I said, dear President, we do not want graffiti. Please make a sign that says, we do not want graffiti. Okay, Joe Biden? I love most of our writing that it's fun and it really tells you that it's not good to do something. Writing really helps the world. I'm doing a opinion piece of writing, and this is the writing I have already been working on. It's dear friends, kids always run the water on. Maybe we can give gold stars to kids who turn the water off all the time. Because it's important to wash your hands to keep your hands clean with no germs. Especially when COVID is here. It's important to wash your hands. So I start with my literature. My literature helps me figure out things here. Sometimes we need to revise sometimes. So that's why I always use these tools around me. Here, let me show you my word wall. It says up here, word wall. Here helps me, but when I get stuck on something on words that I don't know, I can just look on my literature. All the things I should know that I should use for my opinion piece, so that pieces and pages, so that I can make it even better. Persuasive writing? By Hudson, dear world, please do not touch people when you have COVID-19, because you can make people sick, and when they are sick, they can make the earth sick. So that's why you can't touch people when you have COVID-19. Because it can change the world. Because writing can make things better. That's why I write a dear world.
Okay. Well, that's it. I just wanted to share those words of wisdom. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate the opportunity to share the extraordinary work that our kinder teachers are doing and our kindergartners. And this year, the extraordinary work that our parents did also in helping our kids progress so much as writers. That's it. Thank you.
Well, before you sign off, Marley, let's see if there's anybody from the board who has any comments for you. Ellen.
Marley, I just want to thank you for your extraordinary years of service to the district. You've been great. I really appreciate it, and happy retirement. But we'll always remember all the hard work you've done for us.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you.
Other comments? Well,
Well,
Marley, I just have to echo what Ellen said. We really appreciate all of your extraordinary efforts, not only during this extraordinary year, but throughout your extraordinary teaching professional years. Thank you. And it was so wonderful to see the progress that the kindergartners are making, and really so exciting. So thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Oh, did I miss somebody?
Catherine.
Oh, Catherine, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say that your beautiful smiling face will even be more beautiful and more smiling, I'm thinking, in the very near future, but you'll be missing those days that you've spent with those wonderful children and everything that you brought to their families and our community. So thank you very much, Marley.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you're doing.
Okay, well, let's move on to item 7.01, first hearing regarding proposed composition of by trustee areas. Now, this will be a public hearing. Is that not correct, Chelsea?
That is correct.
Okay, so I think the way we're going to do this is first we'll hear from the demographers as they present the maps and their rationale for the varying maps. We would then open the public hearing. Then we'll bring it back to the board for comments based on the other things. One thing I would like to ask the board, if you would consider doing, please, is write your questions down and then ask them after public comment while the demographer's here. So if everybody would do that, please, I think we'd like to see that happen if that's possible. So is everybody good with that? Okay. Chelsea, do you want to take it away, please?
Sure. Well, good evening, everyone. That certainly is a tough act to follow, but we'll get started here. As you're all aware, the board has begun the transition from an at-large election system to by trustee area elections. So most recently on May 4th, after 2 public hearings to gather community input on the trustee area map creation process, the board adopted a resolution selecting criteria to guide the district's demographers in preparing the draft trustee area maps. On May 11th, the district timely published 3 proposed trustee area maps on the district website for consideration by the board and by the community. So tonight, we again have the district's demographers joining us from National Demographics Corporation to provide a detailed presentation on the proposed trustee area maps. So following the presentation, the board will hold the first of 2 statutorily required public hearings to receive community input on the proposed trustee area maps. And with that, I will turn it over to Doug.
So, thank you, Chelsea, and good evening, board members and audience members. I'm happy to be with you again, and again, I'm joined by Daniel Phillips, also from NDC. So, we'll take you through the maps, and then be happy to answer any questions that you or the public have after the public hearing. So, with that, I will share my screen. Oh. If I can be made a co-host, there we go. Thank you. So let me get the slides up. We'll start briefly with slides and then take you into an interactive map where we can show the maps in much more detail. So you're familiar with the process so far, but just in case we're getting anyone for the first time, the board has previously held 2 initial hearings where it got input on communities in the district and other factors that you wish to take into account in developing maps. So, and as Chelsea just mentioned, these maps were posted 7 days ago, so that there was time for the public to look at them and prepare their comments for tonight. And then tonight is the first of 2 hearings to discuss and revise the draft maps. Tonight, followed by June 1st, will be the next one. Then comes map adoption, and this is, as you may recall, somewhat of an odd process in that the board's vote is not the final vote. It then goes to the county committee for a hearing and final approval. So with that review, we'll move into the rules that we followed in drawing these maps. On the left-hand side, you see the federal laws. These are must-dos. Everyone drawing maps has to follow these. So we have to have equal population. That's the equal number of total people. So it's not equal number of voters or anything like that. It's total population. Then we have the Federal Voting Rights Act that we need to be sure to comply with. And we comply with that while at the same time not letting race become the predominant factor. So race can be one thing that's considered and it needs to be considered to ensure we're following the Federal Voting Rights Act. But if race becomes the predominant factor, then it becomes racial gerrymandering, and federal law doesn't allow that. Then in the first 2 hearings, we talked about traditional redistricting principles. And following the second hearing, the board selected the following principles to guide the drawing. So we have contiguity. Obviously, all parts of each district should, or trustee area in this case, should touch. Trying to follow communities of interest and respect them. Looking potentially at future population growth. There's not a lot we can do, but we can underpopulate a district slightly by a few percent if it's expected to grow faster than the others going forward. And then other unspecified factors that come up either at board direction or in public comment as the process continues. So we took those into consideration looking at these maps. And before I jump to the maps themselves, I want to give you a brief overview, quick summary of each. Obviously, we're happy to talk in more detail about each one, but there are 3 maps labeled green, orange, and yellow. The green map has 2 or 3 trustees in each attendance zone. So this is the making sure that board members don't end up thinking this is my school, that's your school situation. We have each board member we have multiple board members representing each school. And we did try to follow the guidance and that came up at the earlier hearings about trying to be sure to put a Title I school in each trustee area if possible. And you'll see in each map, we were able to get Title I schools in 5 of the 7 areas, but not in all 7, just given where the schools are located and concentrated. One factor that's treated differently as well is the Cal Poly area, which we're looking at is not just the campus itself, but the campus plus the surrounding student housing. It's not officially on campus. And so in green and orange, that area is divided up into 3 trustee areas. And in yellow, it's divided into 2 trustee areas. And then as you hopefully have noted on the PDF versions of maps, it lists which trustee areas would be up in 2022, and then which would be up in 2027. These are largely dictated by the election years of the current board members, but as you see at the bottom of the orange map description, either 5 or 7 could be up in 2022, with the other one being up in 2024. So that would be an option should the board decide to choose that map. We would then have to also make that decision. So with that, I will jump to the maps. I think I may need to stop sharing this screen and share my map screen. Here we go. There we go. So if you haven't tried this interactive viewer, we highly recommend you try it. Because on an 8.5 by 11 PDF map, there's only so much that we can show. And a number of questions have already come up along that line. So this map is very handy. It's interactive, so anyone can go to the link that's on the district's website, and you can switch things around. So you see right now it's got the elementary school attendance zones. You can add the middle school, in this case they're the same, the high school attendance zones. If you prefer to look at cities, you can turn those on and look at them. You can also look at census designated places, which are kind of unincorporated communities that the census has identified. And all those different things can be overlaid. You can also overlay multiple maps and obviously switch between the maps. So you've got green, orange, yellow. And if you want to see the difference in maps, you turn on 2 of them at once. In this case, green, those are 2 different, and where you see the bold shading, they're the same. And where there's light shading, there's a difference. And so that's an easy way to tell where do maps differ. Oh, and it also has each school site indicated by a dot on this map. And so you get a sense of those things that we were talking about how we're, I'll go back to the attendance zones. Trying to divide up each attendance zone as much as possible. Obviously, Los Ranchos, as you saw, was a more challenging because it's down in the end and kind of isolated. But in the green map, you do see Los Ranchos is also divided, as well as the other attendance zones. And this ensures, obviously, most of given the size of the trustee areas, most of them are going to end up representing multiple schools. But this also ensures that each school's, essentially PTA voters, would then be voting in different trustee areas and having multiple trustees accountable to them. Some of them, like Los Ranchos, we could only divide into 2. Others that are more in the middle of the districts as a whole's geography, it's easier to divide them up into more. So you see Hawthorne actually has 3 board members. The same thing with Baywood has 3 in the green plan that is. So you got the green, got the orange. As the maps shift around, you can see the colors stay with the number. So as 5 moves down into Hawthorne, you can see the orange is still with 5 and so on. And so you've got the brief description I gave you. We're happy to come back and look in detail as we go through this and answer any specific questions that you or the public may have following the public hearing. So with that, I will wrap up my presentation and look forward to the discussion. Thank you very much.
So at this point, I'm going to open the public hearing for this item. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address the board on this item? Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to the board. I'll close this public hearing and bring it back to the board. So there'll probably be lots of questions. Mrs. Dobler-Drew, do you want to begin?
Well, I was thinking that this is maybe in the minutiae more than we want it to be yet, but it has to do with my take on the maps. Shall I just wait until you've gone through, or you're done with your presentation and we should just
Right.
have at it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I thought that this is my opinion. There might be some people that agree with my opinion and others that don't. But I thought that I liked the map where the middle of San Luis Obispo was not already vacant. So number 4 is represented by a board member. And that's
Eve,
the
Eve,
middle
could
of
you-
San Luis Obispo
Hey, Eve,
downtown.
which color map are you talking
Oh,
about?
sorry, yellow.
Okay,
is.
thank you.
And but on the orange map, it wouldn't be represented by anyone. I know eventually it would, but I mean for continuity, since I feel personally, maybe it's because I live here and close to that area, but not in that area. It seems sort of like the heart of the whole district, kind of. So I thought it should already have a continuous member in it, and only one of those maps has that. So on orange and green, there's nobody already in that area, which on orange is 5 and green is 4, but in yellow is also 4, and it is represented by a Mr. Buckman. So that's one thing. And then the other thing that I noted as I looked at them was that it was stated by the demographers that the orange and yellow green number 3 area is about the same, whereas if you look at Baywood area, you can see that there is some movement of the line there, and then actually the population increased a little, so they're not exactly identical there. And then the other thing is I liked the yellow map because it's one of the 2 that had the fewest number of present board members competing against one another. So you're going to have Frame and Roger no matter what you do. I'm sorry about that. Well, no, I'm sorry. You do have them disaggregated in the orange map. You have, wait a minute. Let me just get all the maps in front of me so I can see. Okay, so Frame and Roger are in the same district in the green map. Frame and Roger, Frame and Unger are in the same district in the orange map, and Frame and Roger again on the yellow map. So it looks like Mrs. Frame can't avoid it. But the map that has the least amount of conflict between the existing board members, I thought was the green map. Also has that representative in area 4. I gave you the wrong clue. It was the yellow map, Mr. Buckman represents that area in number 4. And you still have Frame and Roger, but you don't have 2 sets of competing existing board members.
Could I just ask you a question that maybe goes to these guys? So what you're saying is that on one of the maps, there was an area that would not be fully represented until 2024. Is that what you're saying, Eve?
I think so, because
Okay.
the number 4 is vacant on the green map. And that's like downtown.
Could you, do
Downtown
you
is-
understand what Eve's question is? And could you go into what happens in the representation she's talking about? Because I think that would be an important point.
Sure, happy to. All the board members remain at large until the next election, of course. So what is talking about is those seats would not have a current board member in it, but it would be filled in the 2022 election. Or in some
I was
cases,
talking, sorry,
Oh.
I was talking about continuity types of things. I know it's going to be
Right.
filled.
right.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
In some, that seat in particular would be filled either in 2022 or in some of the maps there are 2 vacancies, in which case the board would, or we'd have to decide which one of those would be up in 2022 or 2024.
Eve, did that answer your question?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay, well,
I
we'll
think
come.
we're going about, we're going to get moving towards deciding which one, but maybe not tonight, right?
No, we're not doing that tonight. We
Yeah.
actually have to have 2 more public hearings. We
Oh,
actually
yeah.
have 1
I
more
knew
public
that.
hearing after this evening. And we
Forgot.
won't make a final decision until our 2nd meeting in June. Mrs. Frame?
My apologies. I just wanted to respond just a little bit to Ms. Eve Doblin. Oh, my mask down. Okay. I'm sorry. I just like to respond just a little bit to Ms. Eve Dobler-Drew. I think at the last meeting we had talked about that for those of us that are living, it looks on the map that we're practically living in the same house, but we're not. I can assure the public that we're not.
And I wish you'd do a better job cleaning the kitchen.
But it is really, and I think Ms. Rogers and Mr. Unger shared that really the interest is, or at least from my perspective, it's not preserving my particular being on the board. It's more really what's going to be best for the voters and what really is the best representation. So in my mind, and when we talked about this before, that's kind of where I landed. In that sense. So the continuity, I know the argument was made for the demographer that, if you've been elected, that is really kind of representing the voters, if you kind of drop areas because it's giving voice to the prior election. But I just want to make it just feels a little bit self-serving. So I just want to make sure that, really why we're doing this is for voter representation. And it's really about kind of the voters. So that's all.
Well, can I just respond back
Sure.
that, of course,
Then I'll go to Mark.
of course, it's voter representation. We've been elected. And so, yeah, I'm not just thinking about us as solely us, the 7 of us, but the 7 of us representing our various areas. Just that we're the tip of the spear, so to speak. So I agree with what you're saying.
Mark?
Yes. Thanks, Chris. Eve, I appreciate your comments. I have to say, I'm actually kind of embarrassed that this was drawn where I had the only person in the district. I wish that all of these had none of us somehow doing it. My understanding of this whole process is to create opportunity for people that have not traditionally run for office to have an opportunity to run for office. So appreciate your comments. I'm actually embarrassed. I do have a specific question though. Can you talk to me about where on these maps you compensated for growth in the community? Are there specific areas that we can point to on any one of these maps?
Yeah, so I'll defer to Dr. Phillips on that.
Before I answer your question, I just want to apologize for an error I made. There is a minor change, a very slight change in area 3 between 2 of the maps. I said that was unchanged. So that was my fault. It is slightly changed, but very, very small area that. But to answer your question, Trustee Buckman, I believe?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the high growth area that we.
I'm sorry, say it again, please.
The high growth area that the board identified for us was the southern part of San Luis Obispo and the outskirts in that vicinity around the airport. And so as such, we underpopulated that area by something like 5 or 6%. And that's how we tried to make allowance for that.
Okay, so there's also a large development going in at the intersection of Bachel and Buckley that I'm interested to know how we dealt with that. And then another large development that I'm aware of, help me on, is it not Madonna Road?
Right, so
In
there's-
front of Costco.
Right.
That's
think
Los
there's
Osos
one-
Valley Road.
Yeah, there's the Delidio property.
Right, well,
There's the one that you're talking about, I think, the Avila property by the airport, that's Bayshore and Buckley. And then I think there's also, if I'm not mistaken, there's talk about development on Tank Farm,
yep.
sort of in that area. So the three specific, the
Well,
three areas.
And there's a third, and that's the one that's on Los Osos Valley Road, very close to the freeway, right near Costco, which will actually have a large senior home in it. And so I guess what I'm concerned about is, well, we may have compensated. How do you compensate? So how did you come to 5%? Is it a number of people per acre? Is it, I haven't been able to figure that out.
Sure. So the federal law is that the seats have to be close to perfectly balanced by census total population. And the Supreme Court has said that a plan is presumptively constitutional as long as it's within 5% of that target. So the catch is where we're compensating for this, all we can do is short an area by a little less than 600 people. So if an area is going to grow by 4,000, we can still only short it by 600 people. Otherwise, we get outside of that 5% range. So it's kind of an acknowledgement that's going to grow, but obviously we cannot fully compensate for the future growth.
Okay, and so then you can't compensate for the value of the property, the quality, the size of the homes that are going in, what they're going to cost. And so therefore we can't compensate for the age of the residents, the income level of the residents. But if it seems like it's a fairly insignificant amount.
You're correct. It is a small adjustment that can be made, but it certainly doesn't offset anything. And really when the growth gets taken care of is in 10 years, when after the next census, you come through and adjust all the lines for all the growth that's taken place.
Okay, thanks. I'll defer to somebody else.
So Mark, I think if I may, I think what you're saying and what I hear the demographer saying is we can only count bodies and beds.
No.
We can't count
Oh,
potential bodies and beds as we're going through this. Is that correct?
that's not what I understood.
Okay, so my understanding is that you can adjust up to 600 people per area, but that the development of the maps that you did right now have to be based on actual people there, with this like slight range of potential variance, but we can't say, well, we think the Delidio property is going to have 600 people in it until this, we can guess on that and use the statutory flexibility. But really, we've got to look at this area really does have 600 people in it, and that's how we develop this. Is my understanding correct? We can't look at maybes except within that 5% range. We got to look at who is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think you're very close in terms of the actual numbers we use have to be the census numbers. We can't say there's going to be 4,000 more people here, so we increase the number of like 4,000. But within that, we do have like I said, a few percentage points that we can play with. That in this case works out to about 600 people. So if we know a trustee area is going to grow by 600 people more than another one, we can underpopulate that now so they stay balanced over time. But if we know a trustee area is going to grow by 5,000 people over the next 5 years, we can still only underpopulate it by 600. So that's the maximum flexibility we have.
Yeah.
So, and I just, when I hear how low the number is, my question's about, and I'm going to use this, make up a term maybe, the quality of the voters, right? Do they vote often? The quantity of the registers, that then doesn't come into play because it's such a small number. Or there's no way to, what I was trying to do is link the price of the home to the quality of the vote. And I just don't think I'm hearing that that's either not able to do, or it's not, number's not big enough.
Yeah, I think the term you're probably looking for is the voting propensity of the residents there, and how likely they are to vote. Yeah. Yeah, no, agreed. Traditionally in districting, you're looking at, where you have traditional federal voting rights act cases, you're looking at a jurisdiction that has, an underrepresented population that has much lower turnout, in the South for African Americans, for Latinos in many parts of California. And drawing a trustee area where kind of just about everyone in there is relatively low turnout, so that disadvantage is equaled out and they have a chance to elect the preferred candidate. You have some low turnout areas, but they're not that traditionally underrepresented area. It's more the college or the university and things like that. So it doesn't factor in the way that it would somewhere else.
Well, let me see if anybody else has questions right now. We're looking, we've got about 10 minutes for right now, and then as much time as we need after this. So other questions that people might have? Mark, you want to go on?
I did submit these in writing. I don't know if the process would be that they'll be answered and then shared out. Do you think?
Yes. Chelsea, would you like to discuss, Chelsea and Dr. Prater, would you like to discuss how we will address questions that both the board and the public might have?
Yes, I will go ahead. I've been working with Chelsea Olson Murphy, who directly works with the demographers. And so I've asked that any questions that the board might have and are curious about the CVRA process and the questions around the maps, that please either send them to me or directly to Chelsea. Chelsea then will send them to the demographer, and then Chelsea will maintain a framework of these questions and responses that are relevant to this conversation. And then we will make sure they're posted publicly so that it's transparent from beginning to end.
Okay, so I appreciate this opportunity to ask questions, but the questions that I submitted will ultimately get answered. Thank you very much. Let me just ask this question then, because, well, I have two, but let me ask this one. What I've heard, and maybe you know better than I do, is traditionally down ticket races, school board, right before cemetery districts, school boards, there's less voting at that down ticket. Is that tend to be true? Because I know it's something I've heard over and over, but I don't know if it's true.
It's not really a factor that comes up in districting, because we can just control putting voters in or not, and not individual propensities. But yes, historically there is some trends of that. Some counties are now flipping the ballot. So like LA County now lists the presidential election last to try to overcome that. But
that's good.
But yes, it is common in history.
So I appreciate the propensity response. So then that brings me to the question, which is this all based on the number of people that voted last time, whatever it is, or is the percents that you gave us on vote, is that represent the number of people that voted in the school for the school board within that election only?
Nobody keeps track of individual voters. There's no report.
Keep track of the 12 people that voted. I got it.
Right. Yeah, we don't know who dropped off. All we know is someone turned in a ballot. It could be blank. It could be full. There's no way to know.
Okay. Thank you. Let me just lay this one out publicly. We got 5 minutes, so I'll try to ask it quickly. Cal Poly, I appreciate that you're dealing with the community that we think Cal Poly students live in, but Cal Poly in and of itself has dormitories, right? So those numbers are more than 600, just to say that, to use that number. And so my concern is it looks like those, whatever it is, more than 600 plus students were used to balance the number of voters within districts. Is there any way to legally, or at least any way for us to see a map that the Cal Poly resident dorms as, I don't want to make the comparison to the correction facility, but the Cal Poly resident dorms can be shown on the map so we can sort of take them in and out of the picture, even if we don't do it officially. Does that make sense?
So yes, this is where the interactive map is why we love it so much. As you can zoom in all the way down to individual houses and the university itself, and then see how the different maps treat that area. And so you can see how it's handled. But no, you can't, they have to be counted and they have to be included in the count. There's no way to zero them out like you can with the prison.
So in any of the maps, are they sort of, if maps or 4 districts are nearby, do they divide that up into 4? What's the most amount that you were able to divide that number up into? A little bit into District 3?
I believe it's 3. Is that right, Dr. Phillips? Yeah.
So as far as the wider area, yes, 3. But when you're talking about the university campus itself, it's only divided into 2 areas in one map.
Okay. Thanks, Chris.
It's about 5 minutes to 6. And I'm just going to go around to the board members and see if anybody has any questions right now. Mrs. Shefford, do you have a question or are you satisfied?
My only clarification I'm seeking has to do with the board's questions that may come on down the line, as well as those of the public, and ensuring that all of those will be responded to and dealt with publicly, that they'll be, they won't be managed, kind of in-house, that this entire process will be very public and transparent.
Sure. Oh, go ahead, Chelsea.
Oh, I was just going to say, yes, we're collecting, Ellen, all of those questions right now, and we will develop an FAQ, and any ones that are more appropriate sort of to be presented on in the board meeting. We will also, I'm working to work with Doug and Daniel, and we will present those to you at the next meeting as well.
Yeah, I would add too that now that you've seen the draft maps, there is the opportunity to comment on things you would want to see changed in them. Keep in mind, any change requests, we have to population balance. So ideally, the request would have both moving one way and what gets moved back to balance it. But in addition to your questions, we can also look at map changes if you have input on that front too.
But I think it is important to recognize that if you move a street in one place, you got to move a street in another place, probably.
Exactly.
Marilyn, do you have any questions? Catherine?
Yeah, it's more about, in looking at the maps, if you, what I find difficult when I'm reading them is, when I see a school placed on, a border, it would be helpful for me is when, the next information that we get is that whatever area, the areas that you have is the actual schools are named. So it's a little bit hard for me to see on the map. I'm finding it hard. So if we could get that information, I would appreciate that in addition. And that's really kind of, so as I'm looking at that, it would be helpful. Thank you.
Hold on just a second, Mark.
Yeah, sure.
Catherine, did you have any questions?
I just wanted to circle back to what you mentioned. I'm sorry, I just wanted to circle back to what you mentioned at the beginning about the Los Ranchos, the number 6 area being 5 to 6% underpopulated. And our next version of this will reflect that, I assume.
Well, we can look at doing that if the board feels that it's worth it. I wasn't clear from the discussion whether the 600 people isn't enough to be worth making the change, or whether you'd like to see that change.
So it's probably insignificant, the number yeah, okay, thank you.
Eve, did you have any more questions? And then I'll go back to Mark and then we'll wrap it up.
I think it's good. I know that in regard to what Mrs. Frame just said that about the school names and so forth, I had written you a note about the attendance areas. That's what you're showing us now on that interactive map, right? The interactive interactive review map that is digital. Can we have that in a, could we have that in a, no, we want to be interactive. That is available to us, right? We just go on, it's now available to us to use, to look at
Yes, it is on the district website.
on the district website, yeah. And it shows the attendance areas. I know you've already shown us that it does have attendance areas. I just haven't used it yet, so I'll find out how well it works for me. Then I'll see if I have more questions for next time. Thank you.
Mark?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So I'm very excited about this process, and it's so much, sorry, it's kind of fun to mess with the numbers and, you know, look and try to catch you guys and maybe being 10 off or something. But I also have to tell you that this whole process has really saddened me and kind of made me mad. And the California Voting Rights Act, the Federal Voting Rights Act, for me, were put in place to allow underrepresented voices to come up and to be able to run for office if they wanted. And, you know, this community had a large American Indian population. It had a large Mexican population. It had a large Chinese population. And as I looked at these maps, I am just asking myself, where did they go and why aren't they here? And it just for me, it saddens me because it would make this community so much richer, and they're not here. And so it's something that I just jumped out at me as we did this work.
Well, thank you, Mark. That's probably a good place for us to stop. Again, we will be returning to this at our next meeting. I believe our next meeting is June 1st. Is that not correct? We'll have another public hearing. I think it'll give us a chance to have some of the questions answered. Chelsea, I know, like we said, you're keeping track of them. Dr. Prater, you're keeping track of them. We want this process to be open. We want this process to be transparent, and we invite participation from the public. Absolutely. It is a complicated process, and I think as I looked at this, I realized how difficult it was to try to balance things out, and I realized, had this realization that if you move one thing, you've got to move something else within reason. I mean, you know, obviously within the 600 people, you know, the 5%, but it's a domino effect in my understanding of it. So I think we have some things to think about. We have some things we can present to the public, and I think we have some things the public can provide us with input on. And I think, speaking for the board, we hope to hear from the public. So please make sure that you bring us your questions. With that, hang on just a minute. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. I think that's all for tonight. So again, thank you. We'll move on to item number 8.01, Employees of the Year. Mrs. Newland.
I'm super excited to be here on this note, because tonight we're here to recognize some very special employees who have been nominated by both their peers and supervisors. Our district committee members who helped to select our employees of the year were past employees of the year. And so I'm very excited to announce them to you. So our first school employee of the year is school support employee Danielle Bagnell. And I know Mandy is like working the screen, so hopefully she can like highlight Danielle. But Danielle is the library tech at C.L. Smith. And Danielle, you may know her because she was featured in the Frozen video at C.L. Smith and did the original singing in that video. I realized it was original when all of a sudden Mr. Black's name was being mentioned. So I was like, Anyway, the staff says that Danielle has always been joyful with staff and students on our campus. On the favorite staff member Spirit Day, Danielle had an army of students dressed as her. She was handing devices to students herself when distance learning began, and has created several staff and students videos to aid with technology and campus safety, which includes original songs. And she goes above and beyond to serve the C.L. Smith School. And C.L. Smith says, "We hope there are more people like Danielle in the world." So at this point, we would like clap for Danielle, and I already went to Danielle and handed her her certificate and her Employee of the Year pin, because I knew that we would be talking about her tonight. So thank you, Danielle.
Hey, Danielle, thank you. Danielle, is there anything you'd like to say? Or sing to us?
No, I just want to thank you for having us. Thank you to the board. It was a huge surprise. I'm so grateful to those who nominated me, and I want to give a huge thank you to the two teams that I'm honored to be part of, my C.L. Smith Superstar team led by Aaron Black, award-winning Aaron Black, and also my library tech group, awesome team led by the amazing Michelle Hopper, district librarian. So thank you so much. I feel like we all deserve this award this year because it's been quite a year. So I'd like to share with everyone because we've all done so much. So thank you so much. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for everything.
Thank you, Danielle. So our next Employee of the Year is our physical support employee, and that is Michelle Hellberg. And I believe Michelle may be in the room right now with you because she said that she wanted to be present with the crew chiefs. She's a crew chief at San Luis Obispo High School, and I think Michelle wanted to be present with her crew. So I see Michelle there. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Michelle. So Michelle is well known for her great attitude and personality as she brings a cheerful spark to the crew at San Luis Obispo High School. Michelle has been in our district for less than 2 years, and in that short time, her strong work ethic, adaptability to change, teamwork, and leadership has been an integral part to the success of the BG&T team department. Michelle has willingly stepped into leadership roles as the new crew chief at San Luis Obispo High School. She ran the largest custodial crew in the district as she helped to get Slow High back to ready for reopening, and a senior position at Morro Bay High School, where she rallied her new crew and was able to empty an entire building to prepare for demolition in less than a month, while also preparing Morro Bay High School for reopening. Her success in these positions has landed her the crew chief 2 position at Slow High. Michelle's integrity, sense of humor, leadership, and presence has directly benefited the BG&T department in a really positive way. So thank you, Michelle.
Hey, Michelle. Michelle, I see you got, I see you got some of your coworkers there. Do you want to say anything to us? Because we sure appreciate the work you guys are doing.
I just want to thank all my crew for standing behind me. I couldn't be here without them. If we keep working as a great team, we can accomplish anything. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah. By the way, Kristen and Mandy, where's the virtual cake?
Yeah, that part was hard. You know, didn't get the virtual cake, but we're trying to do our best here, right? Okay, our next Employee of the Year is our Certificated Specialist of the Year, Angela Riles, the counselor at Del Mar. And this is the first year that we've had this category because our Teacher of the Year is a process that goes through the state and was limited to teachers. So we created a Certificated Specialist of the Year. And this year it is Angela Riles, the counselor at Del Mar. And I'd like to say that Angela may have the official title of counselor, but her site says Her reach goes far beyond the students at Del Mar. Angela exemplifies the qualities required for her position. She has extensive knowledge with a growth mindset. She's compassionate, dedicated, empathetic, and authentic. It is her authenticity that really sets Angela apart and provides evident and proves evident when students, families, and staff interact with her. Some of the initiatives Angela has developed and implemented include a multifaceted student support system to address the Del Mar district or our district's priority of a culture of care. She's taken the charge to support Del Mar's quest to become a trauma-informed school, supported the implementation of second steps site-wide, and much more. Many initiatives during reopening have been attributed to Angela. In addition to the program coordination and staff support, the love of Angela's job is working with children and families. She has an amazing ability to connect with students of all ages. And in the words of one of her students, Mrs. Riles is an awesome counselor. She has helped me so much. I love talking with her. She helped me feel more comfortable at school. So Angela is a constant source of morale for students, families, and school staff alike at Del Mar.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this honor. It means a lot to be recognized by not only my amazing Del Mar staff. I tell them they make me make my job easy, and they are the reason that we have such an amazing school there. And I just want to recognize and appreciate all of the counselors this year. We've all been working so hard, just like everybody in these schools. It's been a crazy year, and it's been so great to work with other staff members as we get through this difficult time. And shout out to all the counselors that have been working extra hard this year, and again to my Del Mar staff. So thank you so much for this honor.
Thank you so much, Angela. We really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you so much. We know how difficult this year has been for so many people. And we know the support that you counselors have given really above and beyond, and trying to take care of others and taking care of yourselves too. So thank you so much for everything you do. And as you say, all the counselors.
Thank you, Angela. So our next employee of the year is our overall classified employee of the year. This person's a little near and dear to my heart, and that's Beth Summers. So Beth is the human resources analyst in our department in human resources. And normally we always say that human resources can never win this. So we had to work really hard at keeping this a secret from Beth. But everybody in our department rallied together and really felt like Beth deserved this more than anyone. So Beth's been chosen as the classified employee of the year due to her tenacity, her ethics, her accountability, her earnestness, and her drive. She is a consummate HR professional. Beth's ample depth of knowledge in public service, human resources, and credentialing make her the go-to person in HR. Beth is always at the forefront of new initiatives and projects. She's the center hub of the department in HR and is relied on heavily for support, information, and knowledge. She has always works hard to meet deadlines and find solutions. She's a strategic thinker and really proactive. Beth makes herself accessible to all and is willing to share her knowledge and expertise. She is passionate and committed to equity, diversity, and how to constantly better oneself in order to continue learning and growing as a person. She can always be reached when in need because she is simply that dedicated to doing what is best for our district and our staff. So thank you to Beth.
Thank you, Beth.
Chris.
Beth, do you have some words for us?
Wow, I was so overwhelmed by this nomination. I feel very honored. And I've learned so much from Kristen over the last several years, and she's helped me to become the person I am in HR today. And I appreciate all my coworkers because they've taught me a lot, and they make me better at my job too. So they make me look good. But I really appreciate the honor, and thank you.
Mr. Buckman?
Chris, thanks. Beth, you and I go way, way back.
Yeah, we do.
We worked together. I think it was maybe, if not one of your first jobs in public education, your first. when
One
we
of
were
my
working
first.
together?
I'd worked elsewhere before.
One of your first, and you know, you deserved this then, and I'm so glad you've gotten this award now. Thank you.
Yep. I got a couple of things to say myself. And that's me barking in the background. Beth says speak, and I do. Beth and I also have worked together for a number of years at the county office. Beth kept me out of trouble a bunch of times. I may not have agreed with I may not have liked what she told me, but I never got sued for following her advice. So thank you, Beth. And then, you know, not only Beth, I think we need to recognize that you're, you know, just how hard you work at the HR department, but we lost you for a couple of years up to Santa Cruz. And we're so happy that you came back. And I think some of the knowledge you brought back about the Personnel Commission has really benefited the district as well. And I know you helped me when I had to give a speech about personnel commissions and the relationships between boards and personnel commissions. I got information from you and I was able to share that with a number of folks, and I really appreciate the help and assistance you've given me. And I'm so glad we're back on the same team. So thank you, Beth.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Beth. So our next group of people we'd like to recognize are our site teachers of the year. And I'll just briefly name them and say a couple of sentences about them before I introduce our district teacher of the year. So starting with Jennifer Dawkins from Baywood. And some of the site teachers of the year may or may not be here. So I just want you to know that I went around last week and gave them each a certificate and told them they were welcome to come, but I also knew that they may not be able to come. So let me just read a little bit about Jennifer Dawkins from Baywood. Jennifer has been an integral part of the Baywood team for 33 years. The staff says her dedication to student learning, her positive attitude, and her camaraderie with staff all make her an excellent teacher of the year for Baywood. She approaches each meeting or professional development with an open mind and helps spread a can-do attitude at the school on a regular basis. And for that, we'd like to thank Jennifer Dawkins from Baywood. Thank you, Jennifer. Do you have anything you want to say to the group?
I just want to thank you. This has been great. I love what I do after all these years. I work with a fabulous staff who's very supportive, and we have a great community. So I still love teaching, and it's been a great ride being in this district. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate you. Our next teacher of the year is from Lambs, and that is Desiree Dellinger. And I know Desiree is coaching soccer tonight, and so she is sorry that she cannot be here. But
Kristen, before and after you're done with that, I did receive an email from Desiree, and I'd just like to read a sentence or two from it when you're done.
Absolutely. So Desiree has always been a standout teacher, and this past year, her online teaching has proved to be extraordinary. She's always thinking about the continuity of her lessons and how students will not only be engaged, but how they can master the fundamentals of the English language. She creates many opportunities for her students to be successful. Desiree is always looking for ways to make things better, and she's always pursuing the answer to fundamental questions. What's best for the students? And for that, we want to recognize Desiree for her hard work at Laguna.
Thank you. And this is just part of what Desiree said, and she apologizes for not being here this evening. But as you said, she's coaching a soccer team. One of the things she says is, I'm very proud of the work I do at Laguna Middle School, and being recognized at a school that is full of talented, dedicated, caring educators is a true honor. Thank you for the work you do to support us and our students. With respect, Desiree. So thank you.
Thanks. And I want you to know the site teachers of the year didn't find out that they would even be mentioned until, like Desiree, I talked to her today, so it was not at all expected that she would be here. I just want you to know who the site teachers are before I introduce the district teacher of the year. So our next site teacher of the year is Tiffany Buckman at Los Osos Middle School. Tiffany Buckman works tirelessly with some of the most challenging students at Loams to assure that each student lovingly thrives in the classroom. Tiff constantly innovates new strategies to teach her students. The walls of Tiff's classroom spread throughout the community. She plans numerous state-of-the-art events for her students, including weekly participation in Cal Poly's Buddy program. She piloted a coffee cart for the students to serve to staff, a car wash program, community-based instruction field trips. She's a participant in Special Olympics, Unified Sports, and a Friday Club. Tiff Buckman is a teacher who brings so much of herself to her students, and what she does for the school and the community is immeasurable. So thank you, Tiff.
Thank you. Just want to say thank you to my admin, all the teachers on my campus, and my paraeducators who I could not do my job without. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And you should know I was a special educator, and I worked in a severely handicapped class for a number of years. And the things you're doing are tremendous. The coffee cart, your community-based instruction, your work with Cal Poly. So thank you for all you do for your students.
Thank you, Tiff. Our next site teacher of the year is Heather Fenton from Monarch Grove. So Heather makes it her personal mission to make sure that every one of her students reaches his or her full potential. She works tirelessly to give every student the individualized attention and support they need to reach their goals and make academic growth. She will work extra hours to help anyone who needs anything. The Monarch Grove staff, students, and families all benefit from the generosity of time and Heather's enthusiasm. And for that, we want to thank Heather Fenton, the Teacher of the Year from Monarch Grove. Looks like Heather has a fan club.
I forced them. Thank you so much. I was so surprised when I was nominated, and I was really surprised because I basically work with the staff that is Teacher and Student and Staff of the Year. And I just want to thank my partner for nominating me, and I really want to thank my my class for being amazing. I just think our students this year, probably across the district, I know in my little world of second grade, my students have shown up and worked so hard on Zoom and in person and done tremendous work. I'm just so proud of them. And so thank you.
Thank you so much, Heather. We really appreciate your being here.
Oh, yeah, Heather, I just
Hold
wanted
on just a second. Yeah, Mrs. Frame.
Heather, I just wanted to congratulate you. You have truly, in the years that I worked with you, been a teacher that is always on for others and for your students. And just your little speech right there made me want to be on Zoom with you. I mean, you were just right there. I was engaged. So I appreciate all the hard work you've done throughout the years that I've known you and continue to do. So thank you.
Yes,
thank you,
very
Evelyn.
much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. So our last site teacher of the year before I introduce the district teacher of the year is Megan Whiteson from Morro Bay High School. So Megan Whiteson has been a forerunner for the CTE programs at Morro Bay High School. She teaches many courses that allow students to not only learn new concepts, but also gives them concrete skills that they will be able to use for the rest of their lives. Megan teaches the child development course, and after students take this course and learn about how students grow both mentally and physically, students follow up with the path of the teaching careers course. In addition to teaching all these amazing courses, Megan's also been the ASB teacher at Morro Bay High School. Megan, according to the staff, Megan has transformed our school since she took over as the ASB advisor. She has guided her students well and has increased the positivity and school spirit at Morro Bay High School. And for that reason, she's been chosen as the Morro Bay High School Teacher of the Year.
Well, thank you for all those kind words. I have loved Morway High since I student taught there in 2005. And at the time I was pregnant with my son, Finn, who is now a freshman at Morway High. And I couldn't ask for a better school for him to attend and for me to work at. So it is awesome. And I'm happy to be a pirate.
Thank you. Megan, as you know, as you probably remember, you were the student teacher in my son's class in 2005. You probably won't ever forget him.
No.
And just your commitment to Morway High School, your commitment to your students is well known, not only throughout the school, but throughout the community. I know that you go, I've read accounts of how you just go the extra mile. And I know we're just so lucky to have you and everybody else. So thank you, Megan.
Thank you. Tell Casey I said hi.
Congrats to Megan. So now I'd like to introduce our District Teacher of the Year, Zach Roper from San Luis Obispo High School. So throughout Zach Roper's 4 years at San Luis Obispo High School, Zach's level of dedication and tireless work ethic, supporting students, department counseling, colleagues, and administrative team has been amazing. Zach supports the faculty in curriculum development and staff development. He supports new teachers on how to use technology and is ever present to help the administrative team get up to speed on various platforms and troubleshooting technical issues. He shares his love and knowledge of photography, digital media, and film production with students. He has made a huge difference in the SLO High school community, both for students and the school overall. Zach does so much extra work to help create a culture of celebration around others. During the pandemic, Zach has helped countless students and staff members with distance learning. He is creative, engaging, fair, and thoughtful. And for all these reasons, Zach Roper is the San Luis Coastal Teacher of the Year.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's super honored and humbled to receive the award, and couldn't have done it without all my staff as well. One of the best things about this year was I got to see all the things that the teachers on our campus were doing when I was going to the rooms and getting technology set up. And that was really exciting to see. And I'm just really, really thankful that my principal, Leslie O'Connor, and assistant principal, Nathan Miner, were open to giving me this opportunity to help teachers and kind of explore what we could do differently in a very, very challenging year. So.
Wow. Well, Zach, what can we say? I mean, we hear about the work that you do and just your positive influence at San Luis Obispo High School, and to hear about all the ways that you support the school and support the students. What an honor, and what a well-deserved honor. Thank you for all you do. And thanks to all your colleagues too. You represent the teachers of San Luis Coastal and the consummate professionals that they are. So Zach, thanks, man.
Thank you, Zach. So our the last honor that we have is for our Administrator of the Year. And this year we, as we have one other year during the time I've been at San Luis Coastal, decided that we had both a site Administrator of the Year and a District Administrator of the Year. So at this point in time, I'd like to honor our Site Administrator of the Year, Aaron Black. So Aaron Black's accomplishments and contributions to the C.L. Smith School community and San Luis Coastal at large are unique and have gone unmatched during this unprecedented time. During the pandemic, he has been an ally for students with disabilities and students who need additional support. Mr. Black reached out to families to assess their needs and worked closely with staff to ensure follow through. One example is when Mr. Black knew that students living in a large apartment complex were struggling with internet issues and a structured schedule. He personally went to the complex every morning to wake students up on time for school and help them log into class. And, recently I just want to diverge from that and say, Mr. Black, that I was at a restaurant and a The server there said his children went to CL Smith and said, "Oh, I know Mr. Black. He came to my house. Mr. Black came to my house." And he was all excited. So I do know that this story is true. In addition, he reached out to the district to help with resources to strengthen the internet connection. He's honest and persistent, which keeps the entire community striving for excellence. He is tireless in his efforts to help others succeed, and above all, has students' best interest in mind. His staff says, "We have become more than just a school. Under Aaron's leadership, we have become a close-knit community with common goals, frequent celebrations, and a general sense of joy, a place where educators, students, and families want to be." Aaron embodies the CL Smith motto of "Together we shine." Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate the honor. Obviously, it takes a team, and having staff that's willing and dedicated to do whatever's possible for our kids and parents and community, it takes all of us. And during this definitely most difficult year that I've ever experienced, and all of us have, it's been a challenge. So we're here for kids. And I just want to tip my cap to our entire district for what we've done since March 13th, 2020. It's been unbelievable. And we'll continue to push forward and do what's right for kids. So thank you all. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Aaron. So Aaron, we're just, we're so stoked with the work that you've been doing at CL Smith School. I was thinking, I don't know how much elementary experience you had. You were over at the high school, and you said, I want to do this job at CL Smith, and look at what's happened. And you just, what a great thing you've done for that school. I'm looking at Mrs. Sheffer, and as a CL Smith mom PTA person, I think she might have a few things to add. So thank you, Aaron.
Thanks, Chris.
So Aaron and Danielle, both of you, I feel I am a graduate of CL Smith, as well as my kids, because that's where I kind of got my start in participating in the schools, was at the site level. And one of the things, Aaron, since you've been there, that I've really noticed is that whenever I talk to you about the great work the school is doing, you are so humble, and you always say it's because of your team. And I know that, but you're the leader, and you've gotten them going and have brought them along with you. But you always shrug off credit when I try and help you with it. So I'm so glad that you have this honor, whether you want it or not. I know that you have the devotion and loyalty of your team, and you've engendered that. It's really great to talk to them, to hear how happy they are to be there, working with you, and the parents as well. That's my neighborhood. It's my stomping ground down there. And I really hear great things about you and your whole team and what everyone's doing. And you guys know how to make great videos over there, thanks to Danielle's help as well. So, and teachers, I never knew they had it in them to be out there singing and dancing with everyone. So thanks so much.
Thanks, Ellen. Appreciate it.
And you're a pretty good dancer yourself there, Aaron. So.
Oh, don't ask me to do that.
Kristen?
Yep, I got a video of him playing tetherball the other day out on the yard with the kids. So I'll share that with you guys if you want it. But yeah, thank you to Aaron.
That's the best part of my day right there. So yeah.
Right there. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you for coming. So as I mentioned, usually we have one administrator of the year, but this year we had all the principals go together and write an application for Kimberly McGrath. So Kimberly McGrath was selected as our district administrator of the year. So Kimberly McGrath, assistant superintendent, is the key to success at Sandless Coastal through the COVID crisis. Her work on developing the COVID protocols and the district reopening plans was instrumental in a smooth, team-oriented transition. She also did so while keeping the students the center of every decision. Ms. McGrath has also continued moving the district forward with her work with the Sandless Coastal Educational Foundation, in which she spearheaded the I Innovate initiative and the School Closure Impact Fund. Ms. McGrath has high standards for herself and inspires those she works with to reach for those same goals. She is a clear communicator, supportive, approachable, and reasonable. Perhaps the most impressive aspect of Ms. McGrath's leadership is her ability to find the good in all intentions and situations as she asks the right questions and gives the appropriate directives, which result in continuous improvement for our district. And for those reasons, Kimberly McGrath is our District Administrator of the Year.
Well, thank you. I love how every single person talked about the team of people they work with, because that is exactly what it's about. And that's what makes this district so amazing. When I think of Erin's dedication, constantly calling, saying, can I go knock on this door, Kim? Can we, can we take these steps? Zach, it's perfect that you're the district Teacher of the Year, because you stepped up for this district without a blink, never hesitated, doing things way beyond your job duty that was ever imaginable of any of us. So thank you all so much. It's an amazing place to work.
Dr. Prater, do you have something you'd like to add?
I would say to all of the educators of the year tonight, my heart is full. I'm so proud of who you are and the model that you set for everyone else in the district. I think you truly embody, sort of like what Danielle said, you're doing this as representatives of all of us. That's who we are. That's who we aspire to be. And it's bigger than just one person. And I think what I see tonight in common are people that understand that and embody that. And I'm so proud to be a part of a district like this with Mrs. McGrath. I will say to you that she is off to become a superintendent in Tiburon at Reed Union School District, and she will bring everything that she's brought to us here, she'll bring there. And so it's sort of it's a wonderful thing. We will miss her. I know I will miss her. And, but I wish her well. And it's a compliment to us when another district picks you up as their leader, because it reflects the good work and the good characteristics they see. So, so yeah, congratulations, Kim. You will be awesome wherever you go.
Mr. Buckman, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just have 3 words. Knowledgeable, accessible, and unflappable. And thank you for those 3 words.
Anybody else? Well, Kim, you'll have to listen to this again. So I'm friends with a former school board member up in Atascadero. And every time he calls me, he says, so how's Mrs. McGrath doing? And then he calls me and he says, I hear she's moving on. And I have to tell him, yes. He said, just your reputation in whatever district you've worked in has just been stellar. And I look at here and, I think about when Dr. Prater says, I got this woman that I think will do this really good job. And I think we started you out in, you were doing technology plus curriculum, right? And that was right there. That was a very difficult job, and you handled it with complete aplomb, and you did a great job on that. And then, of course, you became our assistant superintendent. And I think, I don't know about the rest of the board, but I've really seen you grow in that position. And I hate to say it, but you're ready to move on. We're going to miss you. But I know you're going to take everything that you've done for this district and apply it up in Tiburon, and they're going to be a better district for it. So thank you and congratulations. And we're just going to miss the heck out of you. I know we got a few more meetings, but still. Anybody else? Okay. Before we move on to correspondence, I did want to ask if there's anyone who continues to need translation, if you would raise your hand, please, and let us know. Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 9.01, correspondence. We received 2 letters of correspondence, both from Lena Egan, one regarding considerations for trustee area composition, and the other feedback on proposed maps plus Cal Poly 2035 master plan impact on by trustee area. Thank you. We'll move on to public comment. So I'm going to read a statement about public comment. At this point in the agenda, the board welcomes comments on matters of district interest. The board will listen but cannot engage in discussion or take action on items not listed on the agenda. Generally, this section of the agenda is for individuals or representative of a group to address the board on issues not listed on the agenda. Speakers who wish to discuss items on the agenda are requested to wait until that item comes before the board. However, comments may be given on agenda items at this time if it's not possible for a speaker to stay until the agenda item is heard by the board. If you submit written comments on a topic, you will not be allowed to also speak on that topic. Comments or correspondence submitted anonymously will not be accepted. You can contact us via the public comment request form, and that's on our website, prior to the meeting or while the meeting is in session. If you wish to speak at the meeting, click on the participants icon at the bottom of your screen and select raise your hand. When your name is called, you may restart your video if you wish and unmute your audio. If you need assistance with your video, please let us know and we will attempt to fix it. If you have a problem with your audio, please click on the thumbs down icon and we will attempt to assist you. All comments will be limited to 3 minutes. A limit of approximately 450 words in written comment. And again, there is no ceding of time to someone else to help extend their time. Any portion of your comment extending past the 450 word limit may not be read aloud due to time restrictions. All written comments that are not read into the record will be made part of the meeting minutes, provided that such comments are received prior to the end of the meeting. Please be aware that written public comments, including your name, may become public information. Dr. Eisendrath Rogers will now read any written public comments that were submitted prior to the start of the meeting. Dr. Eisendrath Rogers.
This is from John Dreyer. Please consider making guest teacher substitute pay competitive again in SLO County, now that pay is now higher in Templeton and Paso. Please allow guest teachers to rejoin the teacher union. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have no more written public comments. Mrs. Dawson, is there anyone who wishes to address the board orally at this time? Okay, seeing no one, I'll close the public comment. Thank you very much. And I'll move us on to item number 10.01. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Is there someone who wishes to address? Okay, I'm sorry. Could you write that name down for me, send it to me, and I'm sorry. We will go back to public comment. We do have someone who would like to address the board. And Mandy, what could you tell me her name again? I couldn't hear you. I believe Catherine Fritz. Okay. Catherine, are you there?
Yes, I am here. Let me start my.
I'll start your 3 minutes right now. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I'm doing it on my phone, so it's a little bit different than the computer. I actually was a student representative for Sandless Bispo High School. I forgot that my camera was off, so you couldn't physically see me raising my hand to say some information about the campus. Would you guys still like to hear that? Or
Absolutely, and that will not be part of public comment.
Okay.
We will consider this part of a board report, so please carry on.
Okay, thank you. I apologize again. So right now that's going on our campus is we are having officially a prom this Saturday, an evening under the stars. It's from 8 to 10:30 p.m. And due to COVID, we are definitely looking at precautions such as having table assignments for groups no more than 30. And students are allowed to request people they want in their table. We also today had people able to get their COVID tests on campus from 3 to 5 o'clock. And so many students went today to do that in order to participate in the prom. This is a senior prom, but luckily we also got to open it up to juniors because we had around 40 spots still available. So a limited number, but they still have the opportunity to do so. And again, you were either required to have a COVID testing, or if you have your second vaccination, you have to submit your information about that. And then we're having a spirit week this week for prom. So Monday was pajama day. Today was dress like a star. Tomorrow will be decades day, depending on which class you're in, depending on what time you are. So seniors are the 90s, and then it goes down all the way to freshmen. And then Thursday, we are having Planet Day. So you dress as a certain colored planet. So for example, seniors are Earth, so you wear green. And then we also had Mental Health Awareness Week last week. We had everyone wearing green on Thursday to support that. We also opened up virtual kindness cards as well. And we posted on our wellness Instagram within the Associated Student Body to help kids with coping mechanisms during these tough times. And then we also had a Teacher Appreciation Week where students were encouraged to reach out to their teachers to thank them for all that they have done for us this year. And on to sports, we had the many athletic teams win league, which was incredible, such as girls soccer and track and field. And many of them are also competing in CIF right now. And that is all. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Are there any questions from board members? Well, congratulations on having your in-person senior prom. It sounds like it's a very exciting time and it's going to be a very exciting night. And it sounds like you really worked hard to take the kind of precautions you'll need to take to make sure everyone is safe. So congratulations and have a great night for that. Thank you for your report.
Thank you so much.
Okay, now let's move on to item 10.01, business and budget update, Mr. Pinkerton.
Yeah, so as the board may know, the governor came out with the May revise over the weekend on Friday. And so for Sandless Coastal, really only a couple things kind of stood out. And one of them being his goal to potentially have a expanded TK, so transitional kindergarten for all students 4 years old throughout the state. And it looks like may do that outside of Prop 98. So that would be a beneficial thing to our school district if that happened. But I'll let you know as I hear more. And then really the only other thing that really came out of the May revise was the potential for us to receive even more one-time funds, which, you know, as you're going to hear about tonight, there's a lot of expanded programs happening, a lot of things we're trying to do to help kids in academic and, you know, emotional ways. So, you know, anything like that that's going to help us, I think, into the future will be a positive thing.
Great, thank you very much. Ms. McGrath?
Yes, thank you. A few updates for you. So first of all, just a big shout out to Human Resources that has been doing an incredible amount of hiring. And, you know, it kind of speaks to the quality of the school district as a whole that we've had incredible applicants. So with elementary principal positions being filled and other spots, we just see a flood of applicants and high quality applicants, which really, I think, speaks to the quality of the district that people want to be a part of. So thanks to Kristen Newland and to all of HR for their hard work in bringing in some really quality people. Just want to clarify a couple of kind of COVID related items. One is that, CDC puts out guidance related to mask, and sometimes that creates some confusion about what that might look like for schools. So I did just want to remind everyone that, schools are kind of governed by California Department of Public Health and then our local public health guidelines. And so that guidance for us has not changed. Luckily, CDC did kind of put out some clarification that said that schools are still under the same public health guidelines. So, we encourage everyone to just hold tight. The mitigation strategies that we're using right now are really working well and are seeing limited to no spread within the school district setting. It's really kind of community spread that tends to bring it onto our campuses. So we will stick with the guidance that we're obligated to follow. I know it feels like a mixed message when we hear that from CDC, but we just have to remember we're under school guidance. Vaccinations, have started to open up for those 12 to 15. So public health has asked for us to consider using facilities. So I know Mr. Pinkerton and some others may look into that. And then if families choose to do that, that would be up to them, but it might create some more convenience there for those that do choose to do that. So just as the students spoke to, we have also lots of guidelines kind of going around group gatherings and how we can do celebrations in ways that do follow the mitigation strategies and guidelines. So working with everyone on that. And lots of great things, people being creative to figure out how to honor kids and honor employees here at the end of the year. So that's my update for now. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Mr. Pinkerton, back to you for any questions I should ask. No. Okay, back to you, Mr. Pinkerton, for Measure D report, please.
Yeah, last week was fortunate enough with Mr. Bonner to take the science teachers at Sandless Obispo High School into the new science wing. Meeting with them kind of early on before the fall when they'll move into those new classrooms with kids, just to make sure that they have everything that they need, in preparation to move in. But it was really nice just for them to, again, see kind of where we're at now from when we had these original conversations back in 2014. But what the spaces were going to be like, what they needed, those types of things. But to actually see it about to happen has been real positive. So, was fortunate enough to take Mr. Unger around Sandless High today and show him the construction, and love to do that with anybody at any time.
Thank you very much. And if you haven't been there and haven't had an opportunity to see the construction in the new classrooms and what we're doing over there, it's really, really impressive. And I would save this till later, but a big shout out to Mr. Brewington too for letting me come into his classroom this afternoon and showing me just what they're doing there, and to hear his excitement about how Measure D has really helped his program. So it's really pretty darn exciting. All right. We have several public hearings this evening. We'll move on to item 11.01. This is a public hearing of a tentative agreement with CSEA. Mrs. Newland.
Yeah, so this is a public hearing coming forward to you. It's an opportunity for the public to express their concerns or interests regarding the public hearing regarding the tentative agreement that shows up later in the agenda. So you just open the public hearing, allow the public to be able to speak to it if they want, and then close the public hearing, and then the item will appear later on the agenda.
Okay. So this is a public hearing. I will open the public hearing for item 11.01, a tentative agreement with CSEA. Is there anybody from the public that would like to address the board on this item? Okay, seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Our next public hearing is item 11.02. This is a public hearing on our local accountability control plan, or our Lcap. And we're doing a public hearing now, and then during the item, actually, I believe it's 12.02 will be the first reading of that. And at that time, the staff will make a presentation and we'll have an opportunity to discuss this item. So is there anybody from the public who would like to address the board on item 11.02, public hearing of 2021-22 local control accountability plan? This public hearing is now open. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing for item 11.02. I'll open the public hearing for item number 11.03, public hearing of the proposed 2021-22 budget. And this is a part of the LCAP process. So at this point, I'll open the public hearing for item 11.03. Is there anyone who would like to address the board on item 11.03? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. I'll open a public hearing for item 11.04, public hearing of the 2021 Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant Plan. And again, this is part of the package of our LCAP, our budget, and now this Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant Plan. I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address the board on this item? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing for item 11.04. We'll move on to item number 12.01, which is an action item. And it's to approve the recommendation is to approve the tentative agreement with California School Employees Association, chapter number 089, dated January 29th, 2021. Mrs. Newland?
Yeah, so this is the actual tentative agreement. We negotiated this. I want to thank Mr. Buckman for being part of our management team. And we negotiated this in the fall and have worked through it in the spring. And so we're excited to bring it forward to you. It is a 1-year tentative agreement with CSEA for next year.
So
Go ahead,
Chris,
Mr. Buckman, I'm sorry.
unless there's other comments, I'd really like to make this motion. As a member of the negotiating team, I've had the pleasure of working both with Mrs. Newland and the negotiating group from CSEA, and it's just been a pleasure. Everybody working together, and the bottom line is what's best for the district and the kids. So I'd like to move approval.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Mrs. Dobler-Drew. Okay, is there further discussion on this item? Mrs. Frame, you have further discussion?
Oh, no.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the board for a vote. Mr. Buckman, Mrs. Dobler-Drew,
Yes.
Dr. Eisendrath Rogers, Ms. Frame,
Yes.
Ms. Roger,
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffer,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Motion carries 7-0. Before we get into item number 12.02, we're going to take about I don't know, 6 or 7 minute break. Actually, why don't we say we'll reconvene the meeting at 5 minutes after 7, according to the clock in here. So that gives us about 6 or 7 minutes, and then we'll get into the first reading of the 2021-22 local accountability plan. Thank you. We'll take a break at this time.
a big thanks to Rick Mayfield, especially Diane Frost, as well as people put forth a lot of effort to make this fantastic. So I will share my screen. I believe I'm good, Mandy. Yep. And just remind you, this is the document I showed you a draft of. A few changes, a few little tweaks have been made. This is the first draft here today, and it will come back next time. So if you do have some additional pieces of input, I will not kind of go through piece by piece as I did last time with you. So last time, you'll remember I went through focus 1, kind of brought your attention to some of the major pieces, then went through focus 2, said, here's some of the ways we're changing. For example, multi-tiered system of support, student advocates, having some of those big focus areas. And then culture of care being the third piece, really looking at what are we doing to make a difference for social emotional learning? What additional pieces did we put in this year to make sure that we have a focus on that? So I'm happy to answer any questions. I won't go through piece by piece as I did last time.
Okay, so I think we'll probably have some board questions, but before we do, I'd like to go to the public. I know we didn't have anybody for during the public hearing, but I'd like to know if there's anyone from the public that would like to address us on this item right now. Okay, this is a discussion item. I'll bring it back to the board for questions and comments. Mrs. Dobler-Drew.
Thank you. This has been a very comprehensive area, and it's been done so very well. I just have a question about the way the stakeholder engagement data was gathered. I know it was from students and then parents/community and staff. And the question is, can the parents be disaggregated from the community? I'm just thinking that I would be personally interested in knowing just what the parents who have students in the system thought. And I don't know who the community is, in other words. Do you?
Yeah, it's a great point. Mr. Mayfield, feel free to jump in as well. But from my perspective, what I see is that we send out the parent survey. And so the parent survey would be the primary way that we would get information for that section. I think that it's, stated as broader community because we do hear from stakeholders like the Common Ground Task Force, for example, where we may intentionally ask that group, information about steps that we're taking in our district and, what should be included and what do you see as input of how we can keep improving. But the bulk majority of the input from that section would be from the parent survey, as well as groups like ELAC, which is made up of parents as well.
Lcap Advisory Committee would be another group. It's the same survey that gets pushed out to all the different stakeholder groups. And by law, we are, encouraged to reach out to the community as well, which we do. It's posted on the website. So community members do have an opportunity to complete the survey and give their input. But we can certainly disaggregate that data, no problem.
That would be great, because I just feel that there is a difference in my mind anyway. I think the data might prove it out, that parents with children look at the world differently than some other people that might simply want to be making a political statement about the way they think that the school should go.
I don't know the numbers this year, but in the past, they've been very small number of community participants who fill out the survey who don't have students within the district.
Okay, just interested. Thank you very
Dr.
much.
Prater, I just want to interrupt for a second. Dr. Prater, is this something that sounds like it's a request for information from the board that would require the board's consensus?
I'm not sure I'm hearing that as much as it sounds like it might be something that Ms. Dobler-Drew or the rest of the board might be interested in seeing if we were to ferret that out. It got me thinking about this was the first year we did our Youth Truth Survey, including all parents, grades 3 to 12, which is the first time we've ever done that. And so we have sizable data there in addition to all those other pieces. But yeah, I'm not clear whether I'm hearing that.
So Eve, I guess, are you asking for just the numbers of people or to look at their response, the different categories responses individually?
I'm not sure. I heard it said that it could be done. I think they already have the data and they can just run it through the computer a different way or something. That's what I got. So
Right. No, I guess what I'm trying to understand is, do you asking for the data, are you asking for the specific responses from the community versus the parents? Because that's versus the actual numbers of people that have responded, because those are two different things. And I that I guess for me would be a determinant on whether how difficult that request is. See what I'm saying? So are you looking for the answers, or are you just looking for the numbers?
gosh,
I
I
know.
really don't know how to choose between those two choices, but whatever's simplest, I suppose, to show parents with students versus other people that don't have students that might have a different type of stakeholding.
We can easily get the numbers and put that in Friday Focus. Would that be a
Yeah,
good
how
solution?
about if we start with the numbers? Because I suspect that what I'm hearing is that the numbers of people who respond, who are not involved in our school community in one way or another, are very small. And then we could take it from there. Would that be acceptable
Yes.
to you? Okay. Everybody else good with that?
Thank you.
Mrs. Roger?
Well, the most interesting numbers to me, and I don't think it's possible, I don't know how you would disaggregate this, is the number of responses that we got from parents who represent children in these identified groups.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this year we did include that at the beginning of the survey. So I do think we can pull that data out, and I'll be happy to do a little data input in the Friday notes. It wouldn't be complicated.
So Mr. Mayfield, that would be parents who represent students who are English language learners, socioeconomically disadvantaged students, homeless and foster youth?
Homeless and foster youth, correct.
We ask the parents to self-identify, so it would be their self-identification.
So I would have, personally, I would have an interest in knowing how those three groups were represented in the gathering of information.
Okay,
Happy to put it together.
So what you're asking for is the more of the breakdown, the disaggregated data, the breakdown of how many parents we know from each category. Okay. Is everybody good
Yeah,
with that?
just the numbers. I don't need to know
just the
their
numbers.
responses.
Okay.
You
And
bet.
Eve, I think that answers your question. And then if the board has other questions, we will have a second reading and action at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board? Mr. Buckman.
Thanks, Chris. Let me see, I'll just try to pick the most important ones to me. So I'm sure I've asked this every year, probably already this year. So the makeup of the Lcap Advisory Committee, does that include foster, homeless, SED? Who are the folks that are on there, and how do we find them?
Yeah, we always make an effort to get the groups represented in the LCAP Advisory Committee. Some years we're more successful than others. And then, of the several meetings that we have, the, population changes from meeting to meeting, depending on how busy people are. But that's an absolute effort to get those groups involved. And then we specifically take it to DLAC and do an activity to gather their input rather than just push the survey out. We do a specific activity to gather input from that group. And we also did it with, I believe, the Student Senate this year. Dr. Prater led an activity to get their input. And there's at least one other group. Mrs. McGrath, help me out.
Was that the Title I committee?
The District Title I Advisory Committee. Oh, no, it was the equity team, the district equity team. We did an activity with the district equity team as well.
Okay. And Okay, great. So that kind of, if I can.
Can I just ask a
Yeah,
question? Mr.
please.
Burke?
That's
Just,
exactly.
Mr. Mayfield, I think it would be helpful if you would describe the composition of the LCAP advisory group.
Okay, so in general, what we put out to school sites at the beginning of the year that we need to form an LCAP advisory group. We invite staff, administration, parents. I make a special effort at all the meetings to talk to the principals about how important it is, as Mr. Buckman pointed out, to have a representative group of families, especially that represent socioeconomically disadvantaged, English learner, and homeless foster youth. I don't know the exact numbers that were on the final committee, but we do seek out that representation every year.
Go ahead, Mark.
Appreciate it. And if I'm asking too many questions, just interrupt and make sure everybody else gets to. So it was an interesting maybe transition, Rick, because you talked about the DLAC. Within this wonderful document, there's the statement that parent leaders from DLAC will continue to attend the state conferences. And I think that's a great idea. Are there comparable conferences for the other targeted LCAP groups that we might be able to get some parents to?
Yeah, that's a great point. Great idea. I'm certain that there would be conferences that would be apropos to those groups. I know there's an MTSS conference coming up in the summer that I've attended and other staff members have attended as well that has a parent component to it. But in the CABE conference that we have parents attend is outstanding, and a lot of good things come from parent participation in those events.
Great, thanks. And
Yeah, go ahead, Mark, and then. Oh, okay.
yeah, no, I'm sorry. It's just a really silly one. So Bright Bites seemed to be a survey that we were excited about, and we were making decisions based on it. And I noticed that we're not funding it anymore. So are we replacing it? And is there a reason why we don't want to bite anymore?
Well, what I would say is we've had this conversation so many times about what are we going to take off the plate? And we were putting so many surveys out and so many things, that we're asking people to respond to. And Bright Bites, I think when it first came out, technology was relatively new. And so we really wanted to find out who had it and who didn't have it. And I think at this point in time that the data did not change over several years. And it was extremely high levels of, parent have devices, they have hotspots. And now, especially with COVID, we have made certain that all of our families have the technology and devices they need. And so we didn't feel that it was necessary.
Yep. Other questions from board members? Mrs. Roger.
Thank you. In looking at these documents, it's very clear and to see the academic loss that has occurred in these student groups and really across all of our students in post-COVID, in the year of COVID. So I'm really glad to see all of the supports that we plan to put into place. I know we have additional monies coming from the state and federal government, Mr. Pinkerton, and I wonder if you could just give us a little idea of how those monies might be used in whole or in part to support these learners.
You're stealing my thunder, Ms. Rogers. It's the next two items on the board agenda tonight, but yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, then I'm happy
It's
to wait.
okay.
I'm happy
It's
to wait
okay.
and I'll take my answer at the appropriate time.
I mean, ultimately, the goal is to take these one-time dollars to try to, everything we're doing, right? So again, just next year, an additional $7 million to the district. So, and as you can see from this expanded learning grant later on in the agenda, we are doing more than ever when it comes to really helping kids, again, both academically as well as with social emotional needs, right? So if we can utilize those state dollars to save some general fund throughout the next couple of years, then we will hopefully be able to keep these programs going and not just a 1 year, hey, let's do these things and then we're finished with them. We want to make this last as long as possible. So I think you'll hopefully hear that, throughout tonight.
Thank you. And then may I have an unrelated follow-up?
Yeah.
As as I've looked at all the ways that we plan to support learning and the social emotional needs of these particular groups of students, as always, I have to channel my good friend, Mr. Millar. And I've had some discussion with Mr. Pinkerton about how we plan to support Pacific Beach High School, which is largely comprised of students in these groups. Although it's a relatively small number of students, they definitely fall into these groups. So Mr. Mayfield or Mr. Pinkerton, could you explain what we are doing in this LCAP to support Pacific Beach High School students?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do so. There's two specific items. I mean, there's many things we do to support Pac Beach, but there's two specific items within the LCAP that are earmarked for Pac Beach students. One would be a 0.5 teacher who will be able to do some CTE type activities that Mr. Dollar's been wanting to do for some time. And the second thing is funding to bring in outside presenters and consultants to work with the student group there at Pacific Beach High School. But you know, any proposal that Pac Beach brings forward, some of the things fit in within the confines of the LCAP and some do not. And basically anything that's brought forward from Pac Beach or honestly any of our schools, we consider and do what we can to provide the support for that school. But those are the two specific items that come to mind that are outlined in the LCAP.
Thank you. I was aware of them, but I think for the public's information, they should be made aware as well. And then this is Mr. Pinkerton and I really had lengthy discussion about this, but I wanted to bring it up that the Student Senate information that was gleaned from Pacific Beach really spoke to the fact that those students are feeling the need or would really appreciate the opportunity to take some field trips, have some outreach experiences, perhaps go to some technological workplaces, you know, whatever I don't know specifically what they want, but those are opportunities that are afforded to students, other students in our comprehensive high schools. And I'm wondering, are those opportunities available to Pac Beach for the asking?
Yeah, I would say absolutely they are. And I don't know how many years ago it was, but a van was purchased for exactly that purpose, so that Pac Beach would be able to take field trips when they needed and wanted to do that with students and get them out for those activities that you're talking about. But they would absolutely be afforded just like they are at other schools.
Thank you, Mr. Mayfield. Mr. Millar and I thank you.
Mr. Buckman.
Yes, thanks. So when I looked at this, Kim, you had a list of, first of all, it's a great amount of data and it's, you know, a lot of work and I really appreciate the intensity of it. And if Mr. Mayfield had any help, we'll give him a little credit. Okay, so one of the things that stood out for me, two things stood out for me. You had a place in there where it said parent input, I think student input and then staff input. And as I looked at that, there were two themes that seemed to go through it. One was the parents asking for more parent education. And so on that one, we've allocated money in each of the LCAPs each year for parent education, parent engagement, I think is the phrase. Is there more money this year? It seems like it's always sort of been consistent from year to year. Did we recognize that with dollars?
That's a good question. I don't remember, Rick. Do you
Yes.
remember if that, I think there was some different opportunities for sure. And looking at some opportunities for them to be engaged in different ways. And I know that Equity Team and some other groups have even talked about how do we offer specific parent engagement that's specific to the need and what we're hearing from them. Does that answer it about right there?
Yeah, we've had some great conversations, especially with Mr. O'Connor coming up as both the secondary and the adult school director. We've had some great conversations in how we can tie in some of the activities we're going to do for our English learner families, along with parent education at the same time. So you'll see a couple of specific items that are called out about adult education. There's an adult education TOSA that's listed in there. That'll be a certificated staff member that'll assist with that parent education piece and bringing parents into activities we're doing within the regular education program. And then you'll also see parent, it's not parent participation, but it's parent education listed out. As I believe it's $180,000 line item for working with parents and their young students.
That's a lot more than last year. And then, and I just wanted to mention, so I was at a CSBA meeting all weekend, and one of the things that came up because of all of the extra money was districts are doing parent institutes. And so at the beginning of the year, and it's like how to get involved, how to be, what to do. And so I throw that term out. I'm not sure. And then the other thing that ran, the other theme, or the other thing that I saw repeated several times, parents talking about social justice taught with cultural relevant content, students talking about education on equity and diversity, and teachers talking about professional development on culturally responsive teaching. And I was excited about that, and I just hope that that's going to find its way into the Lcap, since the parents, all three groups brought it up.
You bet it will. Not a day goes by we don't talk about and think about activities that would promote diversity, equity, and inclusivity, Mr. Buckman. Just today alone, we're planning for a meeting on Thursday to kind of take a fresh look at the district equity plan and like what activities can we do. We've finished 3 years, which is hard to believe, of the district equity plan, but we need to take a fresh look at what activities we're doing next year to kind of beef that up, as it were. But there are some funds in there under goal number 3, culture of care, for equity work, and it absolutely in the forefront of everything that's in the Lcap.
Mrs. Sheffer?
Thanks. Yeah, I was trying to jump in to piggyback on Mrs. Rogers' comments for a moment about Pacific Beach. And one is just to add on to what she was indicating, to remind people that we do have a Cuesta, someone from Cuesta on campus there once a week now to help students with their future planning. So that's a great step that's been taken. And it's not to say that we don't need more and are always looking for opportunities in some of these areas, but I also wanted to point out that I've attended DLAC meetings in which DLAC participants have returned from opportunities where we've helped them be able to attend conferences the last few years, and they've done it, they've attended, they come back, they report back to DLAC on what they've learned. And that's been really wonderful. You can see how excited they are to share with their fellow DLAC members. And also in conversations with Leslie O'Connor as he prepares to take on his new role with the district, his level of excitement with I'm not going to steal any of his thunder, but he'll be coming to us, I know, with ideas he has to further parent involvement, student involvement at all levels. And I think we do have, we continue to look for ways to improve those opportunities. And the last comment I want to make is the more we engage our students, the more they will be the ones who help their parents become more involved. I think that we can do all we can to reach out to parents. Unlike with our kids, we can drag our kids through the door. We can't do that with our parents, but the more engaged we are with our students, it's not to say we shouldn't continue all our outreach to parents in the community, but the more we grab onto our students, the more there's data out there that show the more likely they are to ask their parents to come to things, to see them do things, to become more involved in the schools. So if we work it from both ends, then I think we'll have even more success than we already have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Frame, do you have anything? I figured you might.
Well, I want to thank Mrs. McGrath and Mr. Mayfield for taking a really. Oh, right. I kind of like my mask. I want to thank Mrs. McGrath and Mr. Mayfield for spending a lot of time with me explaining, going through the document with me. So thank you very much for that time. One thing, and this is an incredibly comprehensive document, so I'm still digesting parts of it. One thing that I appreciate is, and I know Dr. Prater, you talked about having, we're looking to have some metrics. And so this is, it's just a question, and I can't refer to the page. It's kind of at the beginning where we, it talks about student performance on, the CAPS for mathematics and LEA, and it talks about a 5% goal for all students. And then it talks about subgroup target goals. And I'm just wondering, is there a way to differentiate expectations? Because with the amount of money and resources that we're having and spending and trying to close that gap, we want all students to grow, and that is our target. But is there a way to have a more, I guess, accelerated or beefier target for our subgroups? What do you think?
Oops, sorry. I think it's a great point. We tend to have that 5% as kind of our, standard growth. And you're right, when we're putting a lot of efforts into, further developing our subgroups, I could see us reanalyzing our expectation and maybe raising the expectation for maybe what those subgroups look at. So Mr. Mayfield and I'd be happy to check into that.
And I would say, I would add on that statisticians say that 5% is considered a significant amount of growth when you're talking about student data. And so I think that is one reason why we've had that number in there for a long time. And I think a lot of districts do. But the other thing I would say is we certainly don't, stop any kids from making beyond 5% growth. And our efforts are out there for all of those subgroup students to make more than a year's growth. That's a comment and a theme you hear over and over at school sites.
No, Mr. Mayfield, I don't doubt that at all. I know. I think it's helpful to kind of the public and perhaps staff that we're just slightly differentiating kind of and really making that target a little bit different. But I recognize that the amount of work that staff has done putting this together, and really the careful, thoughtful intentionality between instruction and program. So it was just kind of a noting of, can we look at that just a little bit differently?
Great point.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Frame, can I?
Yeah, of course, go ahead.
One of the things that jumps out at me is the conversation we had last week in the strategic study session. And I used the word accelerate. And that's exactly what I meant, is that when you look at your subgroups in particular, you might have a chunk of students at grade level or progressing towards grade level. And then you might have your more concerned subgroups that are far below. And so those students that are progressing towards grade level, they seem to be on target. That 5% growth makes sense. They'll make a year's worth of progress. But in order to close the achievement gap, and I think this is what Mrs. Frame is saying, that focus subgroup that you're really working on, they need to make more than a year's worth of growth just to catch up to their peers. And that's where I use the word accelerate. That's what I meant. Do you understand now what I was trying to get at? So we don't have the whiteboard and I could show you what I meant, but really the acceleration term that I was using is meant for that very concept. We really need to differentiate for the subgroups that we're concerned about that are far below where they need to be, and we need to accelerate them beyond the 5%.
Right.
And I think that's what she's saying. That is actually something I think is a critical feature of closing the gap or addressing learning deficits with students who really are far behind in critical learning. So I do understand what you are asking for, and I do think it's worthy that we examine that.
I would like to thank Dr. Prater for his interpretation. Thank
Could-
you.
could
Did I
I
get
just-
it right? Okay.
Exactly.
Can I just add something?
Sure, can I
Yeah.
jump in? I think what we're talking about right now is critically important, the acceleration you're talking about, because not only do we have subgroups who are far below, which you've acknowledged, which we know, our data shows that, and we're not trying to hide that, but there has been that learning loss. And so that acceleration becomes even more critical, I think. And I'm glad you're having those kinds of discussions. Perhaps we could talk more about this at the next meeting when we actually approve this, hopefully approve this. Mrs. Dobler-Drew, I'm sorry.
I just think it's uncanny. I was going to ask the exact same question as Evelyn. Well, not quite as eloquently as she did, but about the 5%, and noticed that it was there for just about every single category. And is that partly because the staff, it would be somewhat unequal to expect one group of staff to have to show 7% and another group of staff to only have to show 5% improvement? I mean, is it anything have to do with the teacher's ability to sprint ahead, fairly, so that they're not overly encumbered with showing progress?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it's that. I think it's healthy to put out goals that you're working towards and to show improvement. I do think when you're looking at over 16 sites that you look at, we're, as a school district as a whole, we're looking to make this amount of growth. I think you make a good point about our subgroups and working to accelerate that. I think it's a great point. I think it's just, as Mr. Mayfield said, what's a significant amount of growth that we can make every year. And you have to remember too, that especially as you get our scores are getting higher and higher, it's harder to make, big chunks of growth. But we want our expectation to be high, right? And we want our goal to be set high. So it's just a way to kind of level throughout all the grade levels, where we want the district as a whole to keep moving.
That answered it really well. Thank you.
You bet.
And then I guess I just have one more question. I feel like I'm channeling Evelyn right now, which is when we engage in efforts that are showing no progress, at what point do we sort of do the fish or cut bait, given that this is a 3-year cycle?
Yeah, it's a great point. We're constantly analyzing, the things that we're doing and looking to see if there's kind of a return on investment of each piece, and should we continue. I would also add that it is difficult in education. I wish it was easier to isolate and to say, can we pinpoint the exact impact of this one program? Rick and I were talking, when you look at a classroom side by side, you can have the exact same curriculum, be taught similar instructional strategies. And because there's a human art to teaching, things won't be taught exactly the same. And then, in education, we don't do like control groups, right? Where we're going to say, we're going to only change this one variable with class B. You're not allowed to have tutoring. You're not allowed to have extended learning. You're not going to have any, after school help. We're going to make sure your parents give you the exact same thing in these two groups. And we're only going to give class B this one additional variable. In education, we can't isolate that tightly. Like I said, in some ways, it'd be nice kind of if we could, because then we could say that there it is. There's what actually made the improvement. What we do is we know in education, we try lots of things, right? And we do great work for kids. And then teachers are often a really good judge of watching to see, hey, I notice each time I'm working with a kid on doing this, I'm seeing growth. So I wish it was easier to isolate it and for us to pinpoint exactly where the growth is coming from. What we do know is that when we look at massive research like John Hattie's research that we've worked with our group on a lot, is we say we know that there's these top strategies that work really well. So let's make sure we're doing those. And what I will tell you is that it's exactly what you have given us the direction of a board: solid curriculum, great instructional strategies, and then look for supports for students that still need that. And that, when you stick with that foundation, that's what research shows is going to make a difference.
And I think one of the also important things is for teachers to be able to come together and have the conversations that they need to have.
You're exactly
to
right.
talk to each other about what's working and what's not working within the classroom.
You're exactly right. As John Hattie would say, collective teacher efficacy is what he calls that, as the number one most impactful thing we can do.
And having good principles.
You're right.
Parent
Leadership
involvement.
matters.
I mean, we know there are a lot of things. Mrs. Roger and then Mrs. Dobler-Drew. Ms. Dobler-Drew.
Thank you. I think what you were referring to there, Mr. Unger, was teacher collaboration time.
Yes.
When I believe that's the time that teachers gather and discuss among themselves at each grade level, what is working well, what is not working well, and share their successes with one another. I just wanted to note, as a follow-up to what Ms. Frame said about setting a higher bar, we set a high bar, the 5%. And when I first came on the board, I thought that was a low amount to shoot for. In actuality, it is a high amount to move students 5%. And I don't know that we've ever achieved it in any academic year. When teachers are working as hard and fast as they can to try to move students forward. And I want to be cautious about putting more expectations for growth on them, because although it sets a high bar and it's something to shoot for, I don't want our teachers to feel that that they're really beating their heads against an unrealistic expectation. 5%, in my opinion, is plenty to shoot for. Now that I've got some years under my belt, I see that if in a year in which we got 5% growth across the board, we would be dancing in the streets. Really. So to shoot high, but if we come in, if we scaffold all of our students, our lowest achieving students, our children that most need our support, if we scaffold them and we're able to get them up, not even to 5%, but significantly up, I will be very pleased. I hope that made sense.
Thank you. Ms. Dobler-Drew.
Changing.
And then Mrs. Sheffer.
Changing to the discussion to the focus one, the rigorous, relevant, and engaging instruction and curriculum. This is just a summary page that I printed out for myself, but you may have said this in the larger description of CTE, but here it says increase the percentage of high school students who complete an AG curriculum within a career technical education pathway. Is that the same as completing the CTE pathway is the question.
Yeah, it's a great point. So I'll give you the short version of the background of that is that we made great strides in ensuring that our career technical education classes are also A to G approved, so that students are not making a choice of whether to complete a CTE pathway and then still staying eligible for a UC or CSU university readiness. So what we would love to see is that students complete a CTE pathway, and those courses are now A to G approved. And so if they complete that pathway and are A to G ready, awesome. Some students complete a CTE pathway and maybe they have a D in a core course or something that kept them from being A to G approved. But our goal is to, one or the other, ideally both.
Yeah, that sounds great. I love the beefing up of the CTE. I mean, so do the pathways need to be updated from the maps that we had, the large?
The large maps that you received last time are accurate and up to date.
Oh, good, because I have some relationships in the community whereby I love to put a round peg in a round hole. So like making those connections.
That's great. We appreciate it. We have incredible business and industry connectors that really help our career technical education programs.
Thanks.
Okay. Mrs. Sheffer?
I just wanted to make the comment, as I think as a board, we're so accustomed to sort of thinking far down the line, and that's certainly part of our job. It's part of administration's job to be looking into the distance, but we are just beginning to enter I can't say post-COVID world, but a less active stage. And I think one thing that will be very interesting, at least to me, to pay attention to is to give our teachers and staff the opportunity and latitude to really, we're making projections, everyone is, the world is making projections on what will be seen when kids return to the classroom in the fall, but we don't know for sure, at least in our district, our kids. And as students return and we have the opportunity, many of you have heard me talk about having eyes on kids. When we really lay eyes on them, have the opportunity to assess where they are and where they match up to the curriculum and where some of those lags may have occurred or for whom they may have occurred. I think we may end up seeing some things that are unexpected, that maybe weren't the way we thought it might be. We may have some surprises along the way. I don't think any of us has a crystal ball, even those, I know that administration and most of the board reads a lot of information out that's available, not just through Sandless Coastal, but in the world at large. But I think until we really have an opportunity to get our arms around a little bit about what we're seeing in the fall, that tempers some of my thinking at this point about what we can expect and what we might see. So I just wanted to put that out there, that saying, sort of making projections or coming up with ideas as though it's been a normal year and we're returning to a normal year, that's certainly not the case.
Thank you. Mrs. Dawson, did we go to the public on this? Okay. Is there any more comments from board members? Okay, we'll close this discussion now on item number 12.01, and let's move on to the discussion of item number 12.03, the first reading of the proposed 2021-22 budget. Mr. Pinkerton.
So yeah, I have Katie Eklund here, who will go through the budget presentation. I'm going to share my screen really quick. As the board knows, it was an interesting, and I kind of put this in the narrative. It was an interesting year last year as we kind of went from a time, and you'll remember, a year ago, basically, the state was looking at, can you see it? The state was looking at massive deferrals, not a lot of money going to education, right? There was all these crazy things happening last January, not January 2020, I should say. So, and then all of a sudden, pandemic hit. we go into the summer and there's this huge federal stimulus, state funds that come to school districts. You know, a lot of money fell to the bottom line the last couple of months of school because PD didn't happen and summer school was limited and no transportation, and all of these things kind of contributed to school districts actually having more reserves as we go through. And all of that comes full circle to this year. And literally it's almost, and it's, for me, it's kind of a weary sign because we have all of this extra one-time money. And though fantastic and great, and we're going to do a lot of great things for kids, there's a little bit of that that's scary too, because we're going to start doing a lot of things that people get used to and really like and enjoy and think that they're great. And then we're going to have to potentially pare those down over the next couple of years. So what you're going to hear on this item, the budget today, as well as the next item, the expanded learnings grant, is I want to try to use those one-time dollars along with our general fund to extend these programs as long as possible. That said, the board re-looks at the Elk budget annually. So there will be things that we will have to prioritize and decide that we're going to keep for kids. And there may be things that go to the side. And so assessing items and assessing what's working and what's not working will be critical. Not kudos to Kim, to Rick, to Laura Storm, to, you know, Shelley Benson and Diane Frost, because I think what you're going to see as this next year comes around, robust PD. Teachers are going to know more than ever in terms of new programs and Fast Bridge and really doing the second steps to curriculum. So I think our staff is going to be so much better educated about what we're doing, that they are going to then be able to communicate better with parents, right? Because, you know, as you begin things like multi-tiered systems of support and all of a sudden kids are going to tutoring, it's going to be critical that we communicate with parents what that means, right? And how this is moving forward. And again, what I'm seeing from my kind of budget chair is that the curriculum team is really, I mean, knocking this out of the park. I sat through the elementary principal meeting today, and to listen to Laura and Kim and Rick and Diane talk about and really give specific direction to our principals about how this is going to go and what we're going to do and how we're helping teachers to get there is exciting. Really exciting. And so I think, and I'm hopeful that we're going to see great academic gains because of it. So that said, Katie Eklund, our new director of fiscal services, this is her first budget year. So it's been challenging to kind of, you know, to figure out this, you know, again, it's really great to get a lot of money, but from a budget standpoint, to figure out what's being funded, where it goes, how do we do it, is critical. So you're going to see tonight that the budget looks good, you know, in terms of balanced budget for the next 3 years in our SACS form, those types of things that Katie will go through. We have not put the $12 million in one time expanded learning, in-person instruction, as well as SR3 in this budget document yet, because we have not got them yet. It's not, you know, we just got word about the state funds this week. So in terms of budgeting those, so you're going to see, we are going to add an additional, you know, one-time $12 million in one-time money will be added to this budget over the next 3 months, right? So you'll get an updated budget, kind of a 30-day revise after July 1. And then of course, at first interim, you're going to see a much better, you know, real budget, right? In terms of where we're at fiscally. And so hopefully through Katie's presentation, as well as mine on expanded learning opportunities grant, you're going to kind of see how we're trying to shuffle these funds and shuffle programs and how they're being paid to make sure that we kind of continue this for as long as possible, all those added supports. So without any further ado, I'm going to have Katie Eklund run you through this, the budget update.
And Mr. Pinkerton, if I could just point out that Mrs. Eklund is a veteran of budgets, working for the county offices here in San Luis Obispo County. I think going over to Mono County, working there, coming back to Paso Robles, and then with us, we were very fortunate that she's one of our teammates now.
Yes, every day I work with her. I'm very, very excited she's with us. Go ahead, Katie.
A little old, guys, a little old. But good evening. So let's get started. Ryan, are you driving or me? Yeah, okay. Awesome. Okay, so we have estimated actuals. This is where we project we will end the current fiscal year budget in the first column. The second column is the projected budget for 21-22. At the estimated actuals, our fund balance, we are hoping to end the year with 18,103,487. I think that will be probably about $1 million higher, we're hoping. One of the things that was challenging just in general with COVID, and then for me being new to the district, is not knowing where salaries and benefits would end. That's typically this time of year, you can start to like back off sub cost or know positions that weren't filled, and know what like your typical vacation payout looks like. But I don't have a good trend for the last 3 years to kind of be able to get that average and make that assumption. So I was very conservative when doing our estimated fund balance going into this year. So next slide, Ryan. Thank you. Some highlights from the assumptions made when building the budget. We kept property taxes at 3.5% for 21-22. That was also the same for 2021. With the federal revenues, we budget those the same as in-state revenues. We budget them flat based on what we know at this moment. And we don't typically get the awards until sometime between October and March, depending. Special ed awards tend to be later in the spring of the following year. So we, again, stay conservative with those and budget them based on the 2021 awards. We do not budget donations or billings because those are not known amounts. So we leave those for the first interim as they come in. We continuously adjust the budget. And special education revenues, those are, we're notified of those amounts by the COE and what those estimates should be. So we built our budget around that. And what you'll see at first interim is when we present the unaudited actuals in September, that is when we'll recognize deferred revenue and carryover, and those adjustments will be made on the first interim report. So our revenue sources, again, property taxes is still the majority of the district's funding at 82%. Local revenues is at the next largest chunk at 6%, and that is made up of our tuition and our special ed block fees that are charged to other districts, and that makes up a large piece of the local revenue. And then we have transportation fees on a normal year and building leases and rentals that would also go into the local revenue. This graph indicates where the district would be if they were LCFF versus the property tax funded. And I did a LCFF calculator today. It was after the slide was done because it just came out with the May revised budget. And when I had done this, the estimate was 9469 if we were an LCFF district versus 11,771 as property taxes per ADA. Today, even with the COLA that the governor is giving, if we were an LCFF district, we would only be up to about $9,800 per ADA. So still quite a bit more property taxes per ADA is received by the district.
So that is a significant change in terms of the May revise that state funded districts are looking at a rather large COLA, which is a really good, a positive thing for them.
Yeah, they're projecting 5% COLA, I believe it is.
Yeah, I think so.
So some other, oh, what was that? You good? Okay. Some other highlights on the expenditures. I include step column. This year we had a salary increase for 21-22 of 2%. The STRS rate went down, not even 1%, but STRS has to be voted on by the STRS board, and the governor can buy down the STRS rate, but unlike PERS, where they are a much bigger retirement system with a board that the governor cannot necessarily directly buy down that rate, it continues to climb. Right now, they're projecting in 3 years it would be at 26%. So right now, it is up 3%, almost 3% from last year. And another big jump we had was in unemployment. Unemployment saw a huge increase, over 1%, and that obviously would be directly related to COVID. And it was the first time unemployment increased since 2015, which was probably an impact from the 08-09 recession, carry over to that. So I don't know if we will see unemployment decrease in the next few years, but for right now, we're looking at a pretty big jump for that.
So I will say too, we also, for our classified employees, pay into Social Security as well. So it's significant percentage on top of the 23% with retirement benefits. So when you look at the 10-year projection, you'll see, you know, it's a pretty hefty cost in terms of overall benefits, which is great for our employees, added benefit to them, but definitely, you know, at a cost.
Okay, the next slide. So here we have where all of our budget, the different categories that we expend. Our budget is still made up of mostly salary and benefits. 80% right now of our budget is in personnel. I expect by first interim that will climb a little bit higher. We are still in the process of working with HR, adding positions with the Lcap. As you saw, there were different programs being added. And so we have some positions that are being added that didn't get captured necessarily right now, as we're increasing and building the funding up for all of the COVID dollars. So that will probably jump up closer to 82% by first interim, just so you're all aware of that.
And you'll see that benefits chunk, right? In purple there, that's each year, it seems like it just gets bigger and bigger overall. So it's one of those things that for our employee groups to understand that, you know, benefits is a large part of compensation when we look at personnel costs.
And then we have the Lcap budget. So you've seen the Lcap plan, you've seen all the different programs that are expected to be implemented next year. The Lcap supplemental is estimated at 4.5 million. So the plan is the story of the entire budget. So we have some Title I funding in there, we have COVID funding in there, we have lottery funding in there, but we are required to spend at least 4.5 of supplemental funds, which is made up of the low socioeconomic group, homeless, foster youth, and English learners. Those Lcap expenditures are being tracked by discretionary code because as of next year, when we're recapping our Lcap expenditures, we can no longer have any funds fall to the bottom. If our Lcap budget wasn't fully expended, we need to track and carry those forward into the next school year and make sure that they are expended in the following year. So a lot more tracking will go on with the Lcap.
That's been less of a problem for us because as a school district, we've, you know, in the past had $7 million that we've, you know, in terms of budget that we put in the Lcap supplemental and spent. And so, you know, if we would almost always be guaranteed that we spent at least the 4.5 that we were supposed to. In this case, this year, we were using the COVID one-time dollars to kind of take that other $2.5 million that we would normally have in the Lcap in terms of spending. So it's going to be something where the curriculum team, Katie, myself, are going to meet on a quarterly basis to review those Lcap expenditures because we want to make sure that we're expending those funds on the kids.
And then it is required when we have a reserve over the minimum 3% that we itemize how our reserve is being broke down. So the 3% minimum reserve would be 3.1 million. The board would like us to maintain a 10% reserve. So that would be the 7.4 million. And then we do have some other funds that when categoricals were rolled into LCFF that we can, programs we still can continue to fund. One of those being the adult ed program. We have the instructional materials realignment. We have kept a balance in there and have continued to use that over the years. We have lottery balances because in the general fund for SACs, it combines your lottery and your unrestricted general fund. So we always like to point out what the lottery balance is because we keep 1 year's worth of lottery in reserves at all times. And so that's a breakdown of what our excess reserve looks like above the 3% requirement. And now it's Ryan's 10-year.
Ryan, before we go on,
Yeah.
sometimes we talk about things that I'm not sure the public understands. Could you explain what SACS is and why that's important?
Katie, you want to take SACS forms?
Absolutely. So the state has an accounting software and it's called SACS. And we have a 22-digit account string that is part of our chart of accounts. And what it does is we pull information out of our financial system where we're tracking all of our revenue and expenditures through this 22-digit account string, and we upload it into the state software. And this gives the state the ability to dice our different expenditures and revenues and ways and have them be able to see different, like they look, for example, at how much we're spending per class, but not even within per class, they look at what populations of students those funds were being used on based on how our account code structure is done. So this software that we load into, which we refer to often as SACS, is just how we're reporting our revenue and expenditures to the state for them to be able to dissect in different ways.
Thank you.
Maybe for clarification also, Chris, can I? So, so I think sometimes people think and get confused on PERS versus STIRS. STIRS is definitely teachers. The term PERS refers to a much larger group than school employees. Do I have that right?
So that would be the public employees.
Public
retirement
employees, like,
system, right?
like
So,
police and fire.
yeah, it can be a whole variety of groups.
And so does that, and that kind of helps drive this number a little bit, that it's not just education. The fact that it's just, it's huge, right?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
So, and even within PERS, there's separate retirement, programs and plans too, right? So it's a, huge variety. So like for public employees, like for school district employees, it's a different formula per se than police or fire,
Okay.
What other organizations pitch in, right? It can be very different throughout.
Okay, thanks.
I think to Mr. Buckman's point, I believe PERS is the largest public employee retirement system in the country. And
Yeah,
possibly
in the world.
might be in the world actually.
Yeah.
Well, probably not in the world, but certainly in the country.
Third largest in the world.
Third.
At least when I toured PERS, it was. Don't know if it still is.
So hopefully with the stock market gains, those types of things that some of these, pensions are doing better, hopefully, right? But, there's the increased contributions is just, to ensure that retirement plans are paid for and that people, can feel safe in that. So, though it's tough because that comes right back to the districts, right? Because it becomes part of our compensation package to employees. And they don't necessarily see that in their monthly check, right? They will see it when they retire because they'll have a retirement that's paid for. But, that is a significant portion of our budget. It used to be like 7%, now 23. So that's, the equivalent of 15% raise for every employee, right? So it's just one of those things that I think people understand it, right? And they want to ensure that that's great, that's in place for them. It was a little disappointed that with all this extra money that the governor did not put forward to pay down STIRS and PERS with some of it, right? Because that is a direct benefit to our to our school district, which has been very helpful to us over the past few years when that's happened. So, so we'll see. You know, there's still a lot can happen between now and, you know, middle June when things are kind of finalized for May revise. We've seen dramatic changes in the past. So, you know, I would love for them to see, you know, put some money towards those retirement systems and help us with that long, ongoing percentage that we see. From a 10-year budget, I'm not going to spend too much time on this tonight because it's going to change dramatically, right? In that we're going to add the $12 million to it. There's some items. So what happens with payroll is from next year, we take last year's payroll, this year's, you know, currently 2021, and we roll it into next year, right? So, there's a lot of those positions that you're going to see in the expanded learning grants that I'm going to use the one-time dollars to pay for those positions, thus freeing up general fund to remain to keep the programs going for a couple more years. But there are also new positions, as Katie said. So MTSS teachers and the new aides that we're going to put in, the extra LLI teachers at each site, those are currently not in the budget either. So it's not like it's just going to be 12 million is going to be in revenues and there's not going to be in expenditures. There will be both. So there will be more expenditures, more people as people are hired as we come on. That said, for sure for next year, there's enough, you know, one-time funds to pay for those items, right? So we'll update this, like I said, in July, when we have, you know, everything in place, when we know who the people are, when we know what's, you know, just be a better projection. So now that said, it is a glimpse into the future, right? In terms of looking at kind of where we're at, what's happening with the district. Over the past couple of years, home prices have gone up. We've seen better property taxes. It's a much better picture in terms of the 10-year budget than what we've had in the past. So we've, you know, 3-4 years ago. And so what we left in the budget, because normally I only do a year back. It'd be 1920 and then we'd go 2021 and we do our 10-year budget, right? But I left 1819 because I wanted you to see the last normal year. What normal expenditures look like, what normal substitute costs were, what normal classified overtime was, what, you know, those types of things, right? To get an idea. Because 1920 is a bit of an anomaly in that all of a sudden in March, everything shut down, right? And though there were costs associated with it, there was a huge savings that we saw, right? And then for 2021, this year, we had this huge influx of state and federal funds. So again, another anomaly in terms of this extra revenues, but also extra expenditures. We spent every penny of our state and federal money that we received this year, right? From pod leaders to paying for childcare for students, right? To lower class sizes, to setting up a virtual learning academy, to paying employees who volunteer to be in person. I mean, I can go on and on, right? With all of the things we did in the school district, to more hotspots and computers for kids. And I mean, just on and on, the things that we did to ensure that our students were taken care of and that our staff had what they needed, right? To provide quality education for kids as best they could in this environment. So you'll see kind of, you know, weird things like, man, we spent a lot of materials and supplies. Well, we did because we bought masks and PPE equipment and we put, you know, shields up everywhere and we did all these extra things. So you just kind of have to know that going into it. And what I would tell you is that this coming year is going to be a little like that. Because there are going to be those types of things that, depending on what the regulations rules are in the fall, we're going to put things in place. I'm purposefully keeping class sizes low, in particular at the elementary school level, because, you know, when school starts, there's not going to be vaccinations per se for, you know, 2-year-olds to 11-year-olds. You know, masks might have to be there. So to help us with quarantining, if we can keep kids spaced out, right, then we can keep kids in class. And, you know, those are the types of things. And hopefully that will help with tier 1 instruction with teachers and having less kids. And so there's been definitely an effort to have that in place. In particular, I would say at the elementary level, along with all of these added resources that we're doing for multi-tiered systems of support and counseling and those types of things. So, but a lot of that will be better reflected, I would say, right, in the fall, in terms of where we're at, you know, budgetarily. So, you know, really the top piece, you're not seeing a lot of changes, right, in terms of overall just revenues with property tax. We've done 3.5 for the next couple of years, and then out years are 3%. So again, conservative estimate, probably going to be higher, but What I don't want to have is, a recession or something happen, right, where it just drops dramatically and we're down to zero. And hey, look at the 10-year, it's 3% throughout. So there's that balance of, being conservative, but not being, unrealistic, right? So that I've tried to maintain that throughout this.
Right.
Mr. Buck.
Ryan, thanks, Chris. Ryan, you mentioned recession. And so one of the questions that I have written down, maybe for later though, is maybe this is a good time. The cost of a 2x4 before COVID was about, I don't know, let's say $5. Right now it's $10 a 2x4. So inflation evidently may be coming, and a big one. Do we need to budget for something like that? I mean, does it affect the work you do?
It's an interesting question, right? Because, most of our budget is people. So yes, in terms of like those costs for health benefits and for STRS and PERS retirement systems, right? We're going to be entering into negotiations for a new agreement next year. So those, our employees going to want, more money because the cost of living is more, those are all considerations that we're going to have to take into account as we move forward. So for sure, it'll have an effect. Measure D, we'll see, hopefully we'll get some of these GMPs in before, things cost, too much as we move forward, right, with building construction. But, there'll be some costs, gasoline in particular, right, for buses, those types of things that could affect. So we'll kind of have to see how it goes, what happens.
So again, so is the projection of 3.5 sort of still okay? Because
I would say
our
revenue
is going to go up 3.5, but if it's only worth 1.5.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, Katie can tie in terms of her, budgeting for inflation is a tough, it's a tough thing to do.
All right, so everybody hoarded up on toilet paper. If anybody needs a 2x4, you're good.
Yes.
And we do add a small percentage for inflation, just in a normal year. But, and that usually is about 1% to 1.5%.
So what you're going to see in this, again, we're going to add the 7 million in state funds that's not in this currently. We're going to add the 5 million in ESSER 3 funds and the federal funds. So that will be added in along with the expenditures that you're going to see in the next, kind of next category, right? So that'll be added. So that's going to make this look a lot better in terms of from a revenue source. Okay. Ongoing. So, other looks, revenues wise, other than that, pretty much stays the same. We're looking at, again, our $2.3 million that we received from the Diablo Canyon, mitigation settlement, which is great, right? Assisting us. That long-term goes away. The foundation will continue to get their half, which helps them get to that $10 million mark, right? Which, as we're seeing, is paying huge dividends to the school district in terms of added, value added programs, innovative things that are coming to us. The transfer funds 2040, we have been putting money into Fund 40 as we can, right, to help with deferred maintenance projects. Really, expense has only come, we really haven't put a ton of money into Fund 20. Something to consider depending on where the bottom line comes this year. We have taken some money out of Fund 20 each year, mainly for the STRS audit that we had a few years back, working with some employees, right, that had issues with STRS. So you'll see a little bit of expense that comes out for a few years. I believe we have 2 more years that'll come out. Ms. Roger?
Mr. Pinkerton, could you explain what Fund 20 is, please?
Yeah, so from the age of 55 to 65, if an employee retires, the district continues to pay healthcare benefits for that employee. So, and I believe for classified, it's actually 53 to 65, but nobody really retires at 53. So it's more like 60 to 65, the district pitches in, but so we're obligated to have a fund to try to fund that, post-employment benefit that we've, it's instilled in our contract with our employees. So that's money that's supposed to be set aside for that purpose. So currently we have about 75% of what we should have in that fund.
And just so it doesn't sound like we have fallen behind other districts, do most districts, have they funded their post-retirement benefits accounts?
You know, more and more districts, I will say, than kind of when we started this conversation, when I started a CBO, there were very few districts that had money in Fund 20. But there are more and more that are trying to get that fund established. They're actually setting up trusts, you know, to kind of set up for those funds. But we're one of the fortunate districts to actually have put aside money over the years to help fund, you know, to ensure that those funds are available.
Thanks.
So you'll see from an expense category there, right, for 21, 22, as Katie said, you know, pretty significant increases in terms of salaries, right, with the extra 2% step and column that's gone on. We try to do our best estimate in terms of certificated hourly and subs again. And, you know, you'll see 2021, you know, dramatic decrease in sub costs, right? So kind of putting that back up to where it was at 18, 19, you'll see. So that's why I kind of shared that with the board, just so you could kind of see what those types of costs were in 18, 19. And if anything, they could be more, right? So, you know, I'll work with Katie to make sure that each interim that we're looking at this data, we're looking at the costs and we're updating this so you have a better view of what that is. Mr. Buckman? Nope. Okay. So again, you know, we'll have buses rolling. We're going to have overtime potential charges again, substitutes. You'll see all of that growing, right, as normal levels, benefits. Again, significant, you know, increases that happen. So, you know, with STIRS and PERS, health and welfare, actually smaller health and welfare, you know, potential increase than what we've maybe seen in the past, which is good. You'll see that crazy 6.6 million, right, in books and supplies. You know, when it says books and supplies, it wasn't because we bought a bunch of books, right, for classrooms. That's a broad category of all supplies. So when I talk about masks and PPE supplies and hand sanitizer and those types of things, all of that goes into that category.
So on the books and supplies, that did catch my eye.
Yes.
And I was thinking bigger backpacks, but is there a trend, or are we actually buying less physical books? I mean, are kids carrying less in their backpacks?
You know, well, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I've seen my fifth grade daughter bring her backpack home, and now it's got a Chromebook and, you know, four binders, right? And, you know, but there's definitely a lot of work to be done in kids' backpacks. I'll tell you that. You know, we have really focused on, in particular, classroom books, classroom sets of books for staff. I mean, so much so that I think some teachers are like, hey, like we're good. We have enough classroom books, right? But, you know, that said, we have been ordering a lot of materials for class, you know, for teachers to have. So, and I think that's going to pay dividends in that when we start up all these new LLI groups and we have all these extra aides, like they're going to need more supplies to work with kids, right? Because we're going to be doing a lot more. So, you know, that is definitely a category that's going to rise than probably what we have right now, I will tell you. And again, depending on what the regulations are in the fall, what we're going to have to do for kids, that we'll see where it goes. You know, we've done a great job of buying a couple buses each year, of keeping our fleet up, doing those types of things. So those are things that we kind of wait to see it on audited actuals, how much fall to the bottom line. And then we go ahead and we buy a new bus, we buy a couple new, you know, cars for the fleet, or buy the new truck for Morro Bay High's ag department, or, you know, those types of things, right? So we'll continue to do that as we move forward. Ms. Roger?
Mr. Pickerington, do we have a sinking fund for library books? Site-based library books? And would those be under materials?
A lot of that's probably the Lcap dollars that you see, you know, because there's a lot of books, hundreds of thousands of dollars in books that, you know, we provide for sites. So, you know,
but we don't have a specific category set aside for a sinking fund for library books.
Specifically for that, no.
Okay, thank you.
So services and operations, you know, we did see a hit this year in terms of some revenues, right, with some of our rental sites, and you know, just pandemic, people not being able to pay rent, and, you know, depending on their type of program. So we did work with a lot of groups to keep them, you know, kind of in business. And so that's back now. People are paying rent again. We are moving forward. So that should be a positive. We have the Cayucas funds that are now 100% coming to the school district, right, for those students. So that helps a lot. We'll see what happens with tuition. So I know that, Kim and Val Harrigan are working with, getting students back and paying tuition. And I'm hopeful that, that we're going to be in a place that we can accept foreign exchange students. It's been a real positive thing, I think, for both kids and for our schools to have those students on campus. Again, we'll decide kind of, the board can decide about Fund 20, deferred maintenance, once we know in July what the bottom line, what was the funds that kind of fell as we move forward. So you'll see a surplus for this year. As Katie said, that's going to grow. I think the 238 that you have in the right now will probably be higher, when we get back together, in terms of money falling to the bottom line, though we have spent all of our COVID funds, I will tell you that. And then next year where it shows a deficit that, with the one-time funds coming in, there will not be a deficit once we put the 12 million in one-time funds there. So again, I spent a lot more time than I thought I was going to spend on it, but I just want you to know, we will update this. We'll get more information, kind of as things come forward with the school district. So that's, again, a first reading, general look at the budget for the board, right? I think you'll see that the next item goes right into the same discussion in terms of all of the things we're trying to do to help students and staff for next year.
So I'm going to take it to the public to see if there's anyone from the public who would like to address the board. Seeing no one, is there any other board discussion? Eve?
Can I ask a question about the need to run another bond measure? I was wondering why, after all the great things that have been done, another bond needs to be run again.
So the bond is, again, not part of the budget per se. So, but Measure D, the bond measure that
yes, I
was
know
put
it's not. That's why I was reluctant.
Yeah, so it's okay. I mean, I can generally talk about it. So that's it. We actually have a facility master plan, potential update that's in the consent agenda. So we can pull it if that's a better time to talk about.
Yes,
Okay.
I think
That item
I would prefer that we pull that item. I think
and answer that question at that time.
That this right now could be a little off agenda. So let's remember to
Sounds good.
pull item number 13.07.
And I'll answer that.
Okay, very good. All right, let's move on to, hold on here, to item number 12.04, first reading of 2021 Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant. Looks like it's back to you, Mr. Pinkerton.
Yes. So Kim went through the Lcap. There's a lot of things that you'll see in the Lcap under the goals, actions, and budget that said COVID next to it. Well, this is what the COVID is, right? So there's 3 funding sources coming to the school district. So this first one, which we have to have a plan approved by the board by June 1st. So we'll be asking you to approve this plan. This is a first reading tonight, just so that you can see it, the public can see it. We can give input as we move forward. But this first one is about $5.2 million, and this comes from the state, and it's the Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant Plan. There are specific areas where these funds can be spent that you'll see in the plan, right? So, and really, as noted from the title, this is about expanded learning opportunities for kids. So anything that you can think of that fits into that category, from summer school to after school tutoring to the LLI teachers to MTSS teachers. So anything we're doing to expand the learning of kids, I have tried to put into this grant, including some of the things we normally pay with general fund, such as elementary school counselors. So those are things that, again, expanding the emotional learning of students, that we can utilize these funds for. These funds have to be spent by August of 2022. So, it would be great, right? If this was an extended time and I could just draw those out and really just pay for those key areas that we would consider to be in those things. But because of the timing of it, and I have to spend these dollars by next year, that's why you're seeing me pull some normal LCAP general fund things and put it into this plan. It's not considered supplanting. So normally in like with Title I, with funds like that, there's specific rules about supplanting and not paying for things that you're already paying for. But in this case, these funds are actually able to be utilized for that purpose. Okay. So that's that's what I've done is I've tried to take those things that specifically correlate to expanded learning and put them into this plan for us to pay for the year. And then thus in future years, when this one-time funds are gone, we would have to, of course, have those dollars put back into the LCAP using general fund, right? So those are kind of critical areas. So this should help us in terms of moving forward. So as you'll see, the plan descriptions that are here. So that's the first fund, 5.2 million. There's another state fund called In-Person Learning Fund. And because the school district has been back in person, because the school district had students come back, we were eligible to receive the In-Person Learning Fund, which is roughly about $2 million. And those funds, again, coming now for next year, have to be spent in 1 year. But they're more flexible than the Expanded Learning Opportunities Fund. So, we'll look at utilizing those funds for things like PPE equipment and needs that we have, things that aren't necessarily tied directly to expanded learning opportunities for kids. And then the third one is what we have not received yet, we know we're estimated to get it. We haven't actually received the funds, haven't got the budget code for it. That is called ESSER 3, which is federal funds. And so that's roughly $5 million as well. So that can be used for a variety of means as well. And those dollars, fortunately, do not have to be spent until August of 2024. So those will be funds that I would want to hold aside, right? And maybe use them once these state funds are used, up. So we could use those in 2022, 23, 24. Okay. So what we did, we really just took the input we received from the LCAP. I did meet with the 3 union organizations and kind of talked about the 3 funding sources, kind of what we're talking about doing for these plans. There's specific areas in this plan where at least 10% of it has to be paid or has to be used on paraprofessionals. So it's an item that we have to make sure that the 10% is professionals. And I think that's really the main, kind of the main expenditure that you have to outline, you have to be part of. You have to have part of the plan, other than really has to be specific to, again, these opportunities for students. So again, because of all of the work that we did with students, in this year, really probably more feedback than ever before, right? When I looked at the Student Senate data and the Common Ground and the Equity Task Force, and along with Rick's Lcap committee, and really taking all of those things in, we have a ton of input in terms of moving forward. And then, like I said, I'm really excited about the work that curriculum is doing with Laura, with FastBridge, and really building a system that's not just up to the principal to put together or kind of how they want to do it at their site, but something district-wide that we're going to do at all of our schools. And extra assistance, I will say, at our needier schools. So students with more Title I or SED students or EL students, you'll see that it's, they're going to get a couple more LLI teachers or more aides, right, to help their needs. Honestly, I think they're going to have a hard time spending their Title I funds next year because the district is providing so much support for them. So again, it just kind of outlines some of the things we're doing in terms of assessment, what the opportunities look for, right, for students in terms of that. So I'm happy to take any input from the board on the things that you might have read here. Really a key for us is that Tier 1 instruction, right? So the teacher and students in the classroom, most important. That's the number one thing that makes a difference with student achievement, right? And then, of course, adding all of these other Tier 2, extending the school day, lots of different ideas to really dig down and really intensify the instruction for students. And then again, you see a huge push and focus on emotional learning. So counselors working with kids, working with teachers, incorporating that into the school day, right, into the classroom. So just a lot of things that we're putting forward. And so what I try to do is just kind of, encapsulate those in this expenditure plan. So again, number one, extended learning time. So summer school, we're seeing an expanded summer school program. both for this year and next year, we'll be able to use these funds for, right? Because we have until August of 2022. So, we're doing, it's not just a half-day program anymore for summer school. It's going to be till 2:30. We have expanding opportunities for kids during that time, right? We are paying per diem to teachers so that we can get our best staff to teach summer school. We're adding a lot of extra supports. We're keeping class sizes to a minimum of 15, right? So there's a lot of things we're doing to really help with summer school, and there's a lot of kids, trying to get as many kids as possible in the summer school program. We looked at TK, we looked at the potential longer school day, right? With kindergarten, TK, preschool, still a conversation piece that we need to have to see if we can get those, get that established, right? For the upcoming school years. We'd love to see that for kids. So those types of expenditures are in this plan. And then of course, the second one is accelerating progress to close learning gaps, kind of like what Dr. Prater and Ms. Frame were discussing, right? That acceleration is really the focus of our neediest kids a lot of times, not just our high achievers. So all of these things that you'll see that we're adding in terms of supports, and not just teachers in classrooms, but also kind of district office support and district office staff to ensure that this is done right. And those will be things that I would say in future years, the Lcap will go away, that will leave the resources hopefully in the classroom with schools, with staff, and that we'll slowly be able to back out some of those district, types of expenditures, right? Once things are functioning, once things are going well. So there's always a need to have, like we said, with high quality principals comes good schools, right? There's always a need to have, quality leaders, helping you make sure these programs are successful. But that's all tied into this. A definite push for extensive paraeducator training this summer. I think something that both Diane and Joyce Hanson welcomed, and now with our new director coming in, right? So that with Janet Gold will be helpful for her to really have a lot of days where we pay employees to come in over the summer, to have that extra time to be prepared when school starts, to work with kids and to move forward, and really to learn some of these new programs that we're asking them to work with kids on. I think they're going to need the time to do that, and we're going to pay them, right? We're going to pay them their wage to do that. So the next one kind of goes into, again, integrated student supports to address other barriers to learning. This is where a lot of the counseling, our MFTs tied into it, right? Our counselor on special assignment, our elementary counselors I put into this. And you'll see a whole slew of counseling professional development, time during the summer for them to get together, to plan, to prep, to be ready. Because once school starts day one, the train leaves the station, right? So if we're not prepared and ready to go, it really, it's hard to catch back up. So community learning hubs, again, a large chunk to continue our hotspots for students, as well as, since we're going to be in person now, and all those computers will be used in classrooms, right? We're going to need computers for kids still to take home. That's why we don't need to do the Bright Bites survey anymore, because, hey, if you don't have a computer, we're giving you one, right, along with a hotspot. So there should be no excuse for any of our students not to have internet accessibility and a computer at home.
So I totally appreciate that every kid's got it right now, and that's just amazing. And we were like we had to be among the first in the state, so that was just huge. Thank you, Jeremy and his crew. But community learning hub says to me it's somehow more than just putting technology in their hands. So is there something more behind those words? Is it a hotspot for hotspots? Is it something physical, or is it just a good way to describe putting computers in homes?
I think when again, they write these documents for the whole state of California.
Okay. This wasn't your term.
So this is, all of these, kind of these key categories are what the state put out that you can spend money in these ways, right? So we can spend money on community learning hubs that provide students with access to so on. So, I know in some areas it's very difficult to have technology in the country or things like that, where they probably have to set up actual community hubs, right, for kids to come in and utilize technology. So we're fortunate in that way, I think, in terms of being able to assist kids. Ms. Frank?
Mr. Pinkham, this gets along with the idea of hotspots and things. One thing that I noticed and that I heard from our IT support is there's kind of in Los Osos, there's these dead zones.
Yeah.
And is there a way, and is there a way to address that, or as we rely on technology? I mean, I don't know.
Kim
It's,
Tate.
it's not our fault. It was, but it's, you know, I think it was one of the IT people were at Los Osos Middle School, and they were having difficulty. So it's just something to keep our eyes on about those.
Yeah, you're right. It's not a school issue per se, but Jeremy does contact the local cell tel providers and tells them about spots that are issues. And surprisingly enough, they've actually responded pretty quickly. I thought it would, might be kind of moonshot to give it a try, but he was like, "Hey, Kim, they're already out looking at the depth of that one. If something else needs to be installed." They actually were pretty responsive about it. And, I was thinking you're just going to be dealing with a huge beast of a system, but they were responsive and have looked for how to address those. So yeah, Jeremy's done a great job at addressing it.
Appreciate that.
And this is an area too, I think, for the governor in terms of looking at long-term,
Yeah, I
equity issue for the entire state. We should probably have a Wi-Fi system infrastructure throughout the state, right? For everyone. So that'll be something that I envision in the future will be something that will happen someday. So the next two categories were not necessarily things that we're not doing per se, but there just weren't specific budget items that I thought of that we could put in these areas. But we are, of course, working with students in terms of credit deficient students, complete graduation. We whether through adult school, whether through Pacific Beach, right? I think we're going to be talking to the board about potential waivers for credits, right? Because of COVID soon. There's things like that we are working on, not necessarily cost items per se at this point, though there could be in the future. Along with the next one, additional academic services. I mean, most of the things that I've already described in the other areas, it seemed like those fit in those, and not, there wasn't necessarily that particular category. And then, of course, lastly, training for school staff on strategies to engage students and families in addressing student social, emotional health and academic needs. We have a slew of PD happening this summer. And so, and I will say, Laura Storm, Rick Mayfield, the whole team, right? Diane, really trying to provide the right types of PD, the right types of opportunities where teachers want to. I think everyone needs a bit of a break this summer, right? So that said, if we can, as much PD that we can do during the year, it means we don't pull teachers out of the classroom, right? So, if there's ways that we can get some of that accomplished and pay teachers this summer and pay classified staff, it is a positive thing if we can, as much of it as we can get done during the summertime.
So, thanks, Chris. So I was like just bragging up our summer program because I had heard so much wonderful information just coming to me. And so I was telling people, you need to call the district and get your kid into the summer program. And then I found out it's kind of by invitation only. And so my hope is, or my question is, are we looking sometime in the future? Because it's just going to be a great program. Are we looking sometime in the future where it can be, I'd like to put my kid in summer school here rather than send him to camp somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. You've probably heard Dr. Prater talking about summer experience and how exactly. So we're working on developing that and are seeing little pieces of it roll out this summer, but really Jeff Martin will begin to really focus on developing that. And Debbie Plow that you heard from previously will be working with Jeff in order to really implement in this upcoming summer. And so you're right, we've been targeted and intentional about who we invite, especially at the elementary level, middle school level. High school, there's a little more choice if students are interested in accelerating or getting additional credits. But yes, our goal is to have it open to additional people. So coming soon.
Okay, so not that my grandson doesn't need help in some areas, but I was really hoping to enroll him in the summer experience this summer. So I'll wait. It's good.
So kind of lastly, just to summarize the expanded learning opportunities grant plan. So all of the items that I just discussed are about $6.5 million. But we're only receiving $5.3 million, right? And so a lot of that is because these are one-time funds. So we have to spend them. So I will make sure that we spend every penny of our one-time funds, right? And we save general fund dollars to do that. So it's a little bit of that chess game that I'm gonna have to work with Katie on throughout the year, meeting quarterly, making sure where are we at, what are we spending, right? Both with our Lcap, both with our expanded learning funds, as well as our in-person funds that we have to spend by the end of this year. And then again, like I said, the ESSER funds will have a longer leeway, right, in terms of utilizing those funds. So that said, that is the expanded learning opportunities plan for the board, and it will come back next meeting for final approval.
Then let's move to the public and see if there's any public comment on this item, on item 12.04. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. We move on to our action consent agenda. Please let me know if you want something pulled. And I'm already going to pull item 13.07. 13.01, approval of minutes, May 4th, 2021. 13.02, approval of minutes, May 13th, 2021. 13.03, acceptance of donations. 13.04, approval of certificated and classified personnel items.
Please.
13.04. 13.05, approval of foreign exchange organizations. 13.06, approval of furniture and equipment requests. We're pulling 13.07. 13.08, proposed new board bylaw. 9012, board member electronic communications, second reading. 13.09, proposed revisions to board policy 5145.7, sexual harassment, second reading. 13.10, proposed revisions to board policy 6161.1, selection and evaluation of instructional materials, second reading. 13.11, proposed revisions to board policy 6145.5, student organizations and equal access, second reading. So if somebody would like to make a motion to approve items 13.01 to 13.03, 13.05 and 13.06, and 13.08 to 13.07, I would appreciate that.
So moved.
Thank you. Motion by Mrs. Roger.
I'll second.
Okay, hold on here. Let me see. And I think I heard one first. Okay, is there anybody from the public that would like to address us on the consent agenda items? Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to the board. Mr. Buckman.
Yes.
Ms. Dobler-Drew.
Yes.
Ms. Frame.
Yes.
Ms. Roger.
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffer.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Motion carries 6-0 with one absence. Let's go on to item number 13.04. Mr. Buckman, you had pulled the certificated and classified personnel items.
Yes, thanks, Chris. So, I don't know if this is something that just happens because it's the end of the year or whether there's something else behind this. This is a huge amount of shuffling and moving around. And I saw one in here that was a reduced workload. So I guess my question to administration is this just a normal phenomena, or is this possibly COVID related and people are just burned out on our staff? This is a lot of movement.
Would you like me to address this item?
Yes, please.
Yes,
Mrs.
Kristen.
Newland. Thank you.
So I think that this is an unusual year in that we have had three or four retirements, and then also Kimberly McGrath being promoted. And so that has caused a lot of movement of all of our administrators throughout the district. It's pretty exciting times because we've had these openings and it's allowed people to promote and be in new positions. So I think that's part of it. I think COVID may have had part of it as far as people wanting to do new things and reflecting upon their lives. I think also with the added monies that we've received, that has caused a lot of increase in staffing, as you can see in the LCAP. So all of those things have caused, yes, a flurry of activity in the Human Resources Department.
So I'm noting just in the certificated, I don't know, there's more than 70 things happening, changes in status, new hires, changes, partial resignations. So at this time of the year, I get that the administration's moved, but I'm looking at almost 70 certificated incidents happening. Is that because of this administration, or is that just because folks are just moving? Or, I mean, what I'm hearing from the people that I've spoken to and what other board members have shared with me is staff's burned out. And so I'm just wondering whether this is related to that at all.
Well, the change in status is all about people moving from being temporary to probationary and probationary to permanent. So that's actually an exciting thing. We always let you know who is moving up in the organization. Yeah, I think people are tired, but I don't know that you would see a lot more in the resignation section if people were leaving us, right? I think that you're seeing really more of the changes in the organization because people are moving up and promoting and changing, but I don't know that it's necessarily a negative at this point in time. That's not how I would read that to be.
That's great. I'm not trying to say that it was, but I will make a motion to approve 13.04.
Yes, of course.
I also looked at the number of things that the shifts and changes with our personnel, and it looked to me like we had several people who were taking leaves of absence that looked to me like they might be maternity.
Oh. Mrs. Roger, would you care to second that? Would you care to second what Mr. Buckman said, not what Ms. Dobler-Drew said?
Yes, I'll second Mr. Buckman.
Thank you. Is there any public comment? Is there anybody from the public that would like to address the board on this item? Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to the board. Mr. Buckman? Mrs. Roger? Ms. Dobler-Drew?
Yes.
Mrs. Frame?
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffer?
Yes.
I'm a yes, motion carries 6-0. Item 13.07, Mr. Pinkerton.
Yeah, so basically what we're asking the board to do is really just to help, basically update our facility master plan. So last time we did this was back in 2013. And so what they do is they literally go through each site. They look, what are the facilities like? So everything from roofing to asphalt to bathrooms to classrooms to, basically re-looking at all of our sites. Now we know our two comprehensive high schools, because of Measure D, are going to be in great shape because we still have a couple more years of construction to complete those projects. And we have the funds to do that and make it all work at those sites. But there are still needs at all of our other school sites. So the last time we've had funds for that, prior to that, was Measure A, right? But this is really, before we even go down the road of future bond, those types of things, this is really the step that we need to do. So we need to have a facility master plan, we need to update it, and then we need to share that information with the board. So you can kind of see where are we at, what do our facilities look like, what are the potential future costs, and then how do we want to potentially fund those in the future.
Mrs. Roger and then Ms. Dobler-Drew.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Pinkerton, could you give us, when you look at the facilities master plan, the types of things that come up? I mean, I know there are myriad things that come up, but for example, is it possible for you to give us an idea, just a ballpark cost for a generic roof, elementary school roof, or HVAC system?
So the roof at Los Osos Middle School, to redo the roof at Los Osos, which needs to be done, has to be done, is probably $6 million.
Say $6 million.
$6 million to redo the roof at Los Osos Middle School. And if you look through
I'll do
the
it
budget,
for
if you look through the budget tonight, you'll see that there is no roof budget in our expenditures, our revenues, right? That is not something that we, those types of expenditures are not things that we try to, we do as much deferred maintenance as possible. And listen, we've done more deferred maintenance over the last few years than probably ever before in terms of the projects that we've done and tried to fund. But at some point, there are these large ticket items that, need to be looked at. So I think this is really just so that the board, okay, 2 high schools look good. We've done a lot of other projects at Bishop's Peak, some paint at Del Mar and Sinsheimer, different places, but it'll really give you the board an update of, okay, where are we at now? After finishing these Measure D projects, where are we at in terms of moving forward?
So it's been, I can't remember. I want to say probably 25 years since Measure A. It could be longer.
30.
30 years?
30 years.
30.
yeah.
Okay. And so that was under Measure A, we revamped and did multipurpose rooms at almost all of our elementary schools. There were, well, Bishop's Peak didn't get one.
Yeah.
I think we ran out of money there. But so when school districts typically come up against these kinds of costs that exceed what might be reasonably expected to be deferred maintenance, how do they generally pay for those kinds of expenses?
Through bond measures. That's how they do it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Eve?
So thank you for answering that. So it means that while we have all these new projects that were going on over a period of time, there's attrition in all of the stuff that was already there.
Sure.
Okay, so.
And our
thank you,
focus
thank
really with Measure D was the 2 comprehensive high schools who really got nothing. The sites got nothing from Measure A, right? So that was really focused on the elementary and middle schools at that time, 30 years ago.
Oh.
So now the comprehensive high schools look really good. And we've done other projects too, right? So, I mean, a lot has been done with Measure D. So I want you to know that. I think that'll be reflected in the facility master plan update when you see it. So a lot of things. So from Bellevue to, again, paint, a new phone system, new technology, Wi-Fi at all of our districts, all of those things are positives that should be reflected. But it's time for us to relook. Take a look. Where are we at with our elementaries and our middle schools now and our sites, just to have a general idea. And then I think we can then plan accordingly in terms of in the future, where do we want to go? What do we want to do as a district?
Chris?
Is there anybody? Mark, go ahead.
I'm sorry. So one of the ways I like to think about this, because it's always like we need money for schools. One of the ways I like to think about this is it's your home. The schools are like your home, and you have your family, and then you have 7,000 more kids running around in your house. And they only last for so long. and you can only flush the toilet so many times. So.
We get the idea.
Oh yeah.
So that's why, and honestly, this was just a great bid for us. They've done some work for us already. I think this was a real positive in terms of moving forward with having PBK finish, update our schedule.
So, and just help me remember. So at what number dollars do we need to go out for bid? This is below that amount, but
so this
I'm
is actually
assuming.
professional services. So you don't have to bid this project.
Okay.
But I will tell you, we did bid this project back in 2013. And this is less than half of what it was in 2013.
I can't remember if I went to the public on this item or not. I did not.
No.
I did. Okay. Would someone like to make a motion to approve item 13.07?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Roger.
Second.
Second by Ms. Dobler-Drew. Any further board comment? Mrs. Roger?
Yes.
Ms. Dobler-Drew?
Yes.
Mr. Buckman? Yes. Sheffer?
Yes.
Mrs. Frame?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Let's see. We have reports by board members. Does anybody have anything they'd like to report out? Gilbert Drew.
Had a lovely time arranged by Mrs. Frame to meet with Mr. Black, be one of the first to congratulate him, and to get a tour of the C.L. Smith campus. So it was wonderful to see what the teachers, some of them are doing, and we asked them some questions that we wouldn't have normally have a chance to interact with them on had we not gone to the campuses. So enjoyed it very much.
Mr. Buckman.
Yeah, I was able to attend the California School Boards Association's Delegate Assembly. I represent this area and all the schools. There was so much information shared that I would love to report right now, but I'm gonna type it all up. I'm gonna give it to Eric and we'll figure out a way, but it was an amazing, amazing meeting talking about post and where we're headed. So thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Great.
And I need to point out that while I'm a delegate, Chris was a delegate for years and is a past president of CSBA.
I'm a delegate for life, actually.
And we're sorry about that.
Yeah. All right, let's see. We did reports by board members. I'm sorry, it's a little off. So we'll actually go to 15.02, which is advanced agenda. Is there anyone who has anything for advanced agenda? Mrs. Frame.
Yes, I don't know how to handle this, and perhaps my colleagues can direct me. I'm wondering if we could have before the next LCAP, just the numbers of kind of our demographics, meaning the population of incoming TK, Kinder, incoming EL kids at Pacheco and Baywood, and total numbers per site. Just gives me a little, I hate to use this word, frame as I'm looking to, as I'm, looking at our LCAP documents. So I don't know, do I need to make a formal request? Could we do Friday reports?
I actually would support that. And I believe that we have had, I believe we should be able to pretty quickly and easily get school site information. I'm not sure about the projections.
We have it.
But I think I think it's really important. And, as Mr. Pinkerton sort of alluded to, if we don't do our planning right, we'll wind up in the situation where a lot of school districts plan for too many kids and don't have enough money when they don't show up. So I'm for that. Other people support that? Okay. So Mr. Buckman, anybody else support that? Okay, Mrs. Rogers. So we have enough support for that. So if you could just maybe make that a Friday note, that would be great.
We'll add that along with the other items to
Okay, yes.
that we talked about earlier to Friday
Yes.
update this week.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
If there's nothing else, then we'll adjourn this meeting until June 1st. Thank you all very much. Thank you for sticking with it. We got a lot done tonight. Thank you.